Hey everyone, this is Allan McKay. I'm interviewing Fred Ruff, who has a phenomenal background, almost actually spanning over 20 years, working for Autodesk, working on Grimm and a lot of other really big film and TV projects, as well as now going from being a 3D artist to an executive producer on his own creature TV show for Animal Planet. We're going to dive into this as well as a lot of technical stuff, a lot of the history of 3D, and also just getting excited about like people being able to go and chase their dreams and do some really fucking cool stuff. So that's it, guys. Let's get in there.
Welcome to the Allan McKay podcast. Allan is an Emmy Award-winning visual effects artist and mentor to many leading industry experts. Listen in as Allan talks with other industry leaders in film, video games, and visual effects about their experience, lessons, and methodology. Allan will teach you pivotal advice to fast-track your career, better your skills, and reach your ultimate dream job. Check out the latest episodes on allanmckay.com.
Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 35. I'm interviewing Fred Ruff, and this is going to be a really killer episode. Now, I'm going to keep this short. Fred has a huge background. I remember seeing his name everywhere because he worked for Autodesk and did a lot of really cool stuff back when I was kind of up and coming and doing my thing. And he's such an amazing guy when it comes to a lot of the achievements he's had. Now, this episode is really great because we get to talk about something that I think affects all of us, where we all have those bigger ideas that we all want to do. We want to go work in TV, in film, in video games, or doing design, whatever we want as a creative artist. Most of us have that higher calling that we all want to achieve a bigger thing. We want to go direct a feature film, or we want to go set up our own studio. We want to go and create our own short film. Whatever it is, we all have those bigger picture ideas. And I think for a lot of us, it's quite limiting that we feel that they're too intimidating and too far off. Is not something really achievable. And for me, that's always been a big kind of goal that I've wanted, is to push you guys and say, why not? You know, what is holding you back? And to meet guys like Fred who have done so much in their career, but coming from working in 3D to now becoming an executive producer for his own TV show that he created, this has been a pretty phenomenal thing. And I love seeing these transitions. I've seen now a few 3D artists who've gone and become directors on very big feature films. I've seen a lot of people do some really great stuff. And for me, it always excites me. It motivates me to be able to see these people do these phenomenal things. And it means like, yeah, you completely can do it. Like, why not? And I think for all of us, this is such a great opportunity to kind of see what Fred's doing, as well as see for ourselves that, you know, together we all have those goals and we all want to achieve them. And I think it's going to be really exciting to talk to Fred about his vast knowledge in the industry and history, but also to talk about his own TV show that he's doing with Animal Planet, as well as support him by checking it out next Saturday, the 23rd, when it goes live. So if you go to medievalmonsters.com, that's one word. I'll leave a link in the show notes to it. It might be easier just to click on it there and check it out, but I would love your support. There's so much more to this, so let's just dive in and check it out. And one last thing I wanted to mention, and this is something that has been coming up for a while, and I'm finally glad to announce that I will be officially doing our live reel reviews. And that is something that every month, everyone will be able to sign up, whether you have stuff to show or you just want to participate in it and check it out, listen and see what critiques come up. But I want to be able to bring on each month a different select person who is a vast amount of experience in working in the industry as well as supervising, and typically is someone that does look at a lot of reels and has to make the decision about who gets brought on onto each team as well as who doesn't make the cut. So this, I think, will be very valuable for a lot of us to build our career as well as to find how to make that impact. And I've seen this so many times where all it takes is one shot on your reel that costs you the job. And this is everything. And I think in general, it's just great to be able to get access to someone with such a wide amount of experience, to be able to get some feedback and advice about their career. So each month I'm bringing someone on. I'm bringing Todd Sheridan Perry back, who is an Emmy Award winner, has worked for Weta, who've worked on a lot of really big projects. And we're going to team up this coming month in June 15, I believe it is, or June 17, actually. And we're going to start looking at everyone's work. So right now, this has been the busiest week of my entire year. So with the mentorship and everything else starting literally today in about 2 hours, it's been pretty brutal. But I've put up a page, and later I'll be putting up a proper website and sending out more information. But if you want to go to allanmckay.com/real review, so ALLANMCKAY.com, real review, so REEL review. So hopefully that makes sense. allanmckay.com/real review, and you can submit your email address. One last thing I'll mention, because obviously I've got the VIP inside group, and that's more me submitting a lot of personal content that I will never release publicly. It's, a gold mine of information. But I also have the LA drinks list, and I've also got the real review list. Now, the reason I do this is because I don't want to bore everyone to death with stuff that's not appropriate to them. So for instance, the LA drink list is specifically like once a month, I'll send an email saying, we're all meeting up in Los Angeles at this bar to do a industry networking drinks event, and everyone can meet up and, network, hopefully land a job or get to know other people in the industry working on really exciting stuff. The last one was amazing. Not that I really remember much of it. Very drunk. And for instance, in this case with the real reviews, that's again something that's specific to this. So you will only ever receive information about the upcoming real review. I just wanted to mention that, as obviously I'm trying to segregate this stuff so that way it's very specific to what you're interested in. So this will be a chance to find out ahead of time and submit your work if you want to have it reviewed, but at least be able to time and chime in to the live session and check it out. So again, allanmckay.com/real review. And I'm also going to give a link now to Fred Ruff's upcoming TV show Medieval Monsters, which is on Animal Planet. I want you to be able to check it out while you're listening. This is something that's going to be premiering on May 23rd at 11 p.m. And the whole idea, and we'll get into that, but it's that Animal Planet wants to be able to gauge the audience and interest in this. So this is a chance for you to participate and be able to help influence the fate of this and make the show a reality. So this will be a chance as a community for us to all band together and help make something like this happen. So I think it's going to be really great, and I do urge you to check it out. Okay, so that is it. Let's begin, guys. I'm really excited, and more stuff coming up. As I mentioned, the real review is coming up soon. I'm also going to be mentioning the career intensive webinar that I want to do soon, which will be a live Q&A as well as course in a way of work on our career stuff. And that's something I'll be announcing soon as well, which will be a free webinar just for me to be able to work with you guys a bit more one-on-one and as a group to be able to work on helping you build your career. So I'm really excited about that, but one thing at a time, and let's focus on this for now. Okay, let's dive in. Hi everyone, this is Allan McKay. I am here with Fred Ruff, who has done an exceptional amount of work over his career, which I think is spanning over 20 years, I'm guessing. If I'm actually 22 if I'm good at math. But Fred, thanks first of all for coming on. I just wanted to kind of dive in head first. So do you want to give a bit of an intro as to who you are and what you do?
I can give an attempt to explain what I do. But, I think it all goes back a long time ago with a computer system called the 486.
DX or SX?
Yeah. Did you have the math coprocessor on the side?
Oh, God.
It was back in the days of 3D Studio DOS that came out. And some of us in the world of graphics and things like that had kind of got our hands on it. And I think I came in around version 2 because version 1 was interesting but almost unusable. And a few of us kind of started playing with this, and we were like, "This is pretty cool." And then back in those days, they were just starting to bring computer graphics to film and not television at the time, pretty much film. And a lot of us were just excited that we can get our hands on this at the PC level. So I hooked up with a couple of my buddies, and we go to his house, at nights and weekends, and we do 3D animation stuff, just whatever we could do. I mean, I remember when a version of 3D Studio DOS came out, and all of a sudden lights had shadows. That's how early it was. Like lights didn't have shadows, and someone came up with the idea of shadow mapping, and they thought it was brilliant. We thought it was amazing. You could actually have shadows on things. So that's how early it kind of started. And I was actually going to school for like drafting.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, I like to have fun in high school, so I didn't have a career path really picked out for myself. But I made some small 8mm films when I was probably about 13 with my Star Wars action figures, trying to do stop motion.
Nice.
It was pathetic, but it was, it was interesting and it was fun. And it showed me later on in life, after I had gone to college and partied and drunk and then quit college and then went back to college and quit college again, I eventually realized that I needed to get back to those roots of what I found interesting. And I was like kind of going for I think I was trying to make my parents happy by going after a drafting, a career. And that's when I started to play around with this 3D stuff. And it really, really hooked me in. So I quickly moved over to doing 3D graphics and said, screw 2D line drawings of random brackets for architects. That doesn't make any sense. Let's do this 3D stuff. And my first job, just they threw me on a Silicon Graphics machine, which I'd never even seen one before. It was like this $35,000 computer with probably a $26,000 piece of software, which was Power Animator at the time. And I literally got a job and they were like, hey, can you figure out how to work this? So I had to learn Linux or Unix or actually IRIX at the time. And I had
IRIX, yep.
Had to figure out a Power Animator and figure out this SGI, and it was amazingly fun, and that kind of launched me into doing some computer graphic stuff back in New York.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's kind of funny because you'll hear about the SGIs for the longest time, and of course, if you ever meet people who work on SGI, and you mention, oh yeah, I work on the PC, it's just kind of one of these oh okay, you're toying around with that stuff. Okay, that's cute, but the thing is you jump on an SGI and it's just all right, this is a little bit underwhelming considering you kind of tell that PCs were going to be the future of where things are going, pricing wise, everything. Like an SGI, I remember I started in 3D Studio 3 for DOS, but then I moved to the SGI to Softimage 3.7 Extreme, and Extreme. I love actually because especially back then you'd have all the software wars. So Maya, I worked with some Max people who were oh yeah, Maya Limited and playing wordplay on all the names instead of Unlimited, Maya Limited, and I forget the other ones. But yeah, it's just basically screwing around. Everyone's got to bash every other product. But
well, talk about bashing. So what I did is after I was working in New York, and then I then kind of tried to get a job in the West Coast. So I ended up at Crystal Dynamics, which was a game company doing at the cutting edge of the PlayStation and Sega. They were doing 3DO games at the time, and I worked there for a bit, and then eventually landed a job at Autodesk, and that's where the religion really kicked in, because 3D Studio had already gone through, or 3D Studio Max was already out, and they needed a sales rep in Southern LA or the LA area. So I kind of jumped on board, moved to LA, and became a sales rep, kind of not sales, but the demo jockey or whatever you want to call it, the tech artist or application engineer, they call them. And we got into that whole religion thing. I remember with my sales guy, we actually made hats, and the hats said anti-alias, and it was in the Alias Wavefront logo from back in the day. So we had actually produced not slander, but we were producing gear to really push 3D Studio on the PC and stay away from the Alias Wavefront products on the SGI. And that was our sales pitch, was look, you can do this at home, you can do it with a PC. Those SGIs aren't faster than PCs. The PCs were quickly outperforming the SGI machines, and we were trying to fight over the Max versus Maya game for years. And it's funny how after I left the company, all of a sudden they bought Maya, they bought Softimage, and now it's all one big company. And there's no there's no war, there's no software war anymore. So after the Cold War's over, now you just choose your weapon. You want to use Maya, fine. You use Max, fine.
Yeah,
they have advantages in certain areas, and it's still computer graphics. And I still stick with Max because it's what I know, and I know what I can do with it, and I can do it efficiently. I don't need to switch software.
That's right. And for me, anytime I've ever been asked, if I go do a talk at SIGGRAPH or anything like that, and if you do get the random, like, which is better, it's just like, come on, man. Like, they've all copied each other to this point that, like, Max would steal, let's say, the transform gizmo from Maya. Maya would steal, like, half the features from Max. Or, everything starts replicating everything. And at this point, like, my answer's always been, like, they equally suck. Like, there's not one better than the other. But, yeah, I mean, it's gotten to a point where it's more about what you're comfortable with, like, what you relate to. And even, like, Houdini, if some people are more node-driven, it's kind of like After Effects versus Nuke. Both are great. Nuke, I prefer because it's more my mindset, and there's.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the religion I'm still in now. I've switched religions now. So after after doing 3D for so long, and they all got bought together, I started doing more and more compositing. Because here's the tip for the new guys: if you're going to be a 3D artist, your render should never be what you show somebody. Never show somebody a render.
Thank you. No, that's
go through some kind of finishing technique, because it's just going to look like a raw render. And even the guys that like spend hours and days on that one still making the render perfect, it's like, yeah, but you should still be doing a little bit of color grading and a little bit of tweaking in any kind of program. But I became now my religion is definitely Nuke, and I learned After Effects to do compositing, and then as soon as I got my hands on Nuke, the engineer side of me took over, and it just solidified why Nuke is a better workflow, which is why I'm pretty much 100% Nuke at the facility for compositing. It's such a great tool to sit in a pipeline and automate all these tasks. And I think people ask me why I like Nuke over After Effects, it's because it's a compositor. It knows where every frame is of every animation. You don't have to guess. There's, everything's formulaic about it, and it just makes sense to my engineering mind. So I still have that religion going on.
That's right. Yeah, and I think that After Effects is great for motion graphics, but again, it's kind of like man, I'm going all nostalgic here, but like for the longest time, you'd be sitting in a Flame suite charging $1,000 an hour. You'd be working in action half the time doing your stuff. Meanwhile, you've got guys in After Effects doing their thing, and at the time, like, yes, you're gonna have like really powerful hardware, but like if you threw enough money at After Effects, in a lot of ways, it could do what like Flame and Inferno could do, and these days especially. I still think that it's not fast in terms of like rendering in After Effects is dog slow, but it's definitely got its place in the world. But like when you're doing more like desktop compositing, node based stuff, like I love Nuke just for the automation. Like After Effects, you can script, but I've never really messed with it. Whereas for me, Nuke, like I can automate, and I do automate like everything that I do, and I love that.
Yeah, no, we have such a pipeline for Nuke that a lot of times we'll just kind of skip the compositing step because the work's already been done. So we have Deadline here, we have 3D Studio, we have Shotgun, we have Nuke, and they all work pretty well together. So I'm kind of excited to see where it's going to go with like Autodesk buying Shotgun and integrating that and what we can do. But basically, our comps, no one ever types in a file name. There's no local rendering. It's basically you send it to the farm. It makes your DPX sequences. Those get turned into QuickTimes. Those QuickTimes get posted to Shotgun, and then we go into a meeting. So we literally can have a compositor sitting down at a few workstations, and we're like, hey, meeting in 5 minutes. And those guys will be like, oh, shit. And they'll just hit the render button, send it off to the farm. By the time we get into the meeting and I do my whole announcements and crap like that, the shots are already rendered. They're already up on Shotgun, and they're already in our review session to be seen. So a lot of studios don't realize that, it's, the faster and smoother you can make your artist work, the more profitable you can be because you're doing more with less people in less time. And I think that's the only trick. If we start to move over from this conversation to the business of what I'm doing now, which is, running a effects and production company, the faster and smoother you can do things without human error, you can compete now. And that's interesting because it's such a tough market to go compete for business that you have to be efficient about what you do.
I love this because for me, I mean, I'm all about that. For the past couple of years, like I've never considered myself a programmer, but bit by bit as an artist, I've started to move more into scripting, and it got to the point where these days I could work on 4 or 5 feature films at a time just because like I've built such a good, robust pipeline around what we do that I'm able to work. I put the work that I do is where I need to actually put the work in, not going and setting up folders and rendering out passes or constructing additional like interactive lighting or shadow mats or whatever else. It's all plugged into Deadline. Deadline plugs into Nuke. Everything's automated, and especially for human error, because you're eliminating the shit that when you're at the 11th hour and you need to get stuff done, that's when you're going to start making mistakes over and over and over. And by having a solid system, it means that okay, I cannot fuck this up. There's no way that it's going to let me get in there and screw everything up. So
you can expand. When you're doing, it's great when you're doing like a few shots in a couple weeks for yourself. But when you get to the point when you're doing, hundreds of shots over time, you just can't. You got to automate it. It's got to be smoother so that everything can be, checked and tracked, and it just has to be done that way. And I'm glad that we have. At first I was hesitant when I was first going to open up my shop, costs. I mean, cost of every piece of software, especially when they're user-based or when they're like subscription-based, you get concerned with that. But to be honest with you, you can't grow and scale to like doing lots and lots of shots without the tools that you need. So it's just kind of a part of doing business that you have to pay for all those tools.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And there's ways you can eliminate it. I might actually pick your brain a bit about your pipeline later on, like when we get to that stage, just because, like for me, like I don't do much cloud rendering, but I've worked with Atomic Fiction a lot, and that kind of like up in Emeryville or Oakland now, but like that kind of changed my perspective a lot. Where we had this mentality on Transformers, where it's basically like fire stuff out to the cloud anytime you want, because an artist sitting around waiting for a render is way more expensive than getting a render back in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, so, that's definitely been as we switch conversations a little bit. I started Refuge VFX in 2013, and a lot of people ask me why, and I tell them I'm an opportunistic entrepreneur, and anytime I see an opportunity, I will kind of jump on it. And there's a difference between just being an entrepreneur but looking for an opportunity. I was working at this other studio, and at home at night, a buddy of mine was asking me to do these 4K renderings for this show that they were producing for a 4K network. And, it's a lot of rendering. I mean, it's just a lot of rendering. And I was fiddling around with the Amazon cloud and kind of trying to learn how to get my own machines online, because the concept made sense. We take our 3D files, which are relatively small, we throw them up to the network, which is, a slower bandwidth. It renders them, and then all those little render files, all those EXRs kind of rain back through the high bandwidth, which is your download speed, from your modem, right? And I was like, this makes sense for 3D. It doesn't necessarily make sense for compositing, where you're uploading layers and layers of images and then only getting one back. It makes sense for uploading something small and bringing it back. So I started fiddling with Amazon, and I probably spent like a month and a half just kind of dicking around with it until I finally got it working. And like a light went off in my head, because when you work in an office or a studio, which I was working for a long time there, they had a bunch of machines, and I always loved having machines at my disposal. If you're just screwing around and you're like, oh, this is a cool little simulation, oh, I'm going to render it. You just throw it to the farm, and there's nothing going on. 10 minutes later, you got a full rendered sequence. So I love that ability, but I couldn't do that at home. Mm-hmm. So once I figured out how to get those Amazon cloud machines rendering for me, I think a light went off in my head, and I was like, I'm actually now bigger, the same size, if not bigger, than the studio I work at, because I have a scalable system, and I could start up 100 machines. They only have 40, So all of a sudden I realized that that was an opportunity for me, and that I could actually, harness that for my own business. So I started Refuge VFX, and that became the first thing, was like, we're going to use cloud rendering. Now, it's not 100%. We still have 10 machines here that they're like 10 older servers that we do for compositing, and all the workstations do rendering. But when we're rendering, we literally start machines up in the cloud, and that's what we do to do rendering. Which, when you look at it, it saved me, $200,000 of complete hardware setup in the beginning. So, where I couldn't have started a business before, it made the turnkey so much lower that I was able to start my own business really efficiently with just the cloud rendering. So It's a big differentiator I try to tell people about. Not everybody gets it. If you're talking to a client, they might not understand that, but I think the tech guys get it. And that's why when people say, why would you start an effects studio, in 2013, it's like, doesn't seem like the right thing to do. And I was like, we had an opportunity, and we knew we could do it fairly cheap and effectively. And it's really been working out pretty well. it's allowed me to we do the show Grimm, which was the other big opportunity because those guys really loved the work that I was doing as an artist and as a supervisor. And as soon as I told them I was quitting my job, they literally were like, "Hey, do you want to keep working on this?" And I was like, "Well, how?" And he's like, "Well, can you put a team together?" And I was like, "Okay, let's put a team together." So I literally, had the ability to kind of go out, and my first client was somebody I'd worked with before and was very comfortable with. So it made it really easy. So we just wrapped season 4 of Grimm, and they got picked up for season 5. So we're excited for them and for us about that. And we're just about to go through a retooling stage. After every season, we kind of, come back to our desks and we figure out, all right, what's the latest version of the software? It's time to upgrade. It's time to kind of, smooth out the pipeline. So I'm going to be doing all that in the next couple of weeks, getting up to the next version of 3D Studio, next version of Nuke, next version of Deadline, and seeing if we can kind of do the same thing just a little bit smoother.
Nice. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll backtrack a little bit and we'll just dive into a couple more things and then we'll start to kind of move back to that because I really want to focus on that. But I'll just talk a little. I'd love to dive into Autodesk and a few things first. One comment I was going to say though, which I find hilarious about rendering the cloud is that I love when I've worked at a few other studios where I've gone in to supervise, and they've typically been companies that have needed to ramp up very quickly, and they figure, okay, we'll throw enough money at something, like we'll get more artists, we'll get more licenses, we'll get more computers, and then we can do everything we need. And suddenly they never ever think about how many amps they need in their studio, and suddenly they're renting like a diesel generator out the back or something just to keep the company moving forward because they don't have enough electricity in their building to accommodate all the rendering power and everything else. And I've seen this about 4 or 5 times, and I find it always just to be the number one killer that no one ever thinks about. And I remember on Flight, again, I was working at Atomic on that one as well, and like I remember we had to think about 30 or 40 shots, and because originally it wasn't a big VFX film like the Denzel one, and then Robert Zemeckis decided he wanted to expand it into like a much bigger like sequence and have a lot of, because originally the whole plane crash was going to take place inside the plane the whole time, and so suddenly we had 350 shots. So it meant either we outsource everything or we're going to need to move to a new office, more computers, more licenses. The overhead is ridiculous. But instead, because we're using Zinc, which is the guys who are at Boston, Google just bought them out. It just meant that like, okay, well, we're just going to, put more shit on the farm. And it meant that we could expand without, hiring that many more people. And yeah, it's just amazing the amount of bandwidth we can kind of expand to. I'll quickly dive back because I'd love just to kind of cover a bit more about your history, especially at Autodesk, because, well, Kinetics, I guess. Was it Autodesk or Kinetics that you...
It was, when I first started, it was Autodesk Multimedia Division, quickly changed to Kinetics within a couple months. And then it was Kinetics for a while before they moved it back to... M&E,
yeah.
Then they called it Discrete.
Oh, right, yeah, because they bought out Discrete.
Back to M&E, Media and Entertainment. So it went through a few different iterations of naming.
Yeah, and like, what was your experience like there? Because I mean, you were there, I think, for 8 years. So I mean, initially coming on board, but also like, yeah, during your time there, like, what was it like?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty exciting because I didn't know what I was getting into, and I first took the job and had all these meetings up in San Francisco, and was at the new Kinetics office, which was down on Harrison Street, which was this weird Art Deco yellow building with a rooftop, and I think it had a basketball court up there too.
Nice.
Which was funny because whenever you missed a shot,
yeah, I was just thinking that,
and like you'd be like, "Oh shit, we got to chase it down into the street now." But I actually, they needed somebody in the Southern California region, so I started there, and it quickly kind of was relocated down south, and took base. Actually, I took base up in Newport Beach, because they were like, you can live wherever. And I was like, how about Newport Beach? And they were like, yeah, that's cool.
Nice.
So I was living in like a beach town, and I would just travel all the time. And just basically your job was to be an artist, but be a salesman and show people what the tool can do, which was kind of tough because, I hadn't used this tool in production. I was using 3D Studio DOS at a game company, and they hired me to kind of, pedal Max. And I was like, yeah, I know 3D Studio Max. I didn't know shit about 3D Studio when I started. I literally faked it, and it was not too bad because, you kind of learn really quickly what you could do in the software. But I'd have to go to all these different game companies and film companies, which was fantastic. I mean, the first year down in LA, I visited like a lot of big film companies. I remember going to Boss Films.
Right.
Still existed at that time. And
wow.
I was just in awe because it was a model shop. Like you'd walk through the model shop and see these like helicopters from Cliffhanger and like, rocks and like these army trucks that have been blown up. And I still want that here in my office. I keep thinking I'm going to just pay somebody to make models and just hang them up on my wall because it's so freaking cool,
That's right.
So it was really fun kind of traveling around and kind of like getting to meet like all these studios and basically trying to consult with them on how they could bring this tool and use it. So not only was it just, the LA based film and video game companies, but I also got to travel to Korea, New Zealand. I met with who's the New Zealand company that I'm thinking of?
Weta?
It's not Weta.
There is no one else.
No?
I'm kidding. October or wait, you're talking about Australia. You're talking about Animal Logic.
Oh yeah, somebody's going to get me in trouble for confusing.
I am because I'm fucking Australian. I'll just dive in real quick and say like that's one of the big advantages of like going to work for Autodesk is like essentially you're going to a lot of studios, you're meeting everyone, and usually the higher up people who are the ones who are going to be making decisions about money and purchases as well as like the pipeline and the direction of the company. And during that time, the whole time that you're there, you're positioning yourself as a big authority. And like I've seen this time and time again that so many people who do come through Discrete or Autodesk and during that time there, like when they leave, they've got pick of the litter. Like Weta, a lot of other studios will instantly say to them like, hey, like if you want, you can come here. We'll create a job for you, just because to them they're seeing you as you know what you're doing because you're at a more of a bird's eye view perspective of the industry and what's going on, and like they can most places can see a lot of value in that. And so anyone I've ever met who's gone through Autodesk, above like let's demo artists is great because you still meet a lot of people, but more when you get into sales especially, you meet everyone, and it's such a key valuable thing for kind of the future of your career, having like met literally all the leaders at every big studio around the world.
Yeah, I probably should have took advantage of it, but I went a different way. I remember there was another like one of my big highlights was Sony Pictures, because Sony Pictures was retooling around the time they did Stuart Little,
mm-hmm.
and I think they were doing 101 Dalmatians at the time too. And they basically have what we called the Bake Off, almost like a bunch of ladies making pies. But they brought in Softimage, Maya, and 3D Studio, and basically had two artists from each team on their side. So there was 6 artists, and then there was the software companies, and they challenged us to like do these like 5 tasks, And it was really interesting, and I was really excited because I was like, all right, this is cool. And the guys we were working with liked our product. So it wasn't like we were talking to the Softimage guys trying to make them use Max. They knew Max and they were using it, and the Softimage guys, so they had the right team. But and we were excited. We were like, oh, we can do anything that they're trying to do here, and we can probably do it more efficiently and faster, et cetera. But then they laid down the law and they said, but you have to use nerds to do the whole project.
So this is at least like Max 2.5, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
still, yeah.
Yeah, it was literally like, they wanted us to make a character out of nerves and skin it and animate it and render it.
It was so painful back then. I remember Physique when it first supported it. I dive in for 1 second to say that like this was before like subdiv modeling was even very popular. Like patches were the thing back then. So
which we pitched them on. We pitched them on maybe doing patches, but subdivs were there. There was the ability to do polygon modeling, unwrap it, and put a turbo or a mesh smooth at the time.
One last thing. I'm going to be a dick and just interrupt you again real quick. But do you know Jesse Hayes by any chance? He's the founder of Savage Games, I think it is, over in San Francisco.
I do not.
Okay. Well, I'll just say like Jesse, like all of us, like Brandon Davis, me, Jesse, Adam Barrety, Stefan Didak, like all of us started like in a chat room basically back in like 95 doing a thing. And Jesse was one of these guys that like he was the first person I ever met who was doing mesh smooth modeling on non-cartoony characters. And I'm talking like, 95, 96. Like he would go and watch like Phantom Menace and come back and rebuild
I've forgotten the horse-like character's name. It's something like Sebulba or something, but I keep thinking of Sebulba or Boulevard. But anyway, like he was basically modeling really realistic characters, doing all the mesh move like approach, and like no one back then would do that. It was always you could do it. You basically do the traditional get a box, extrude the arm, leg, faces, and mesh smooth it, and you get a cartoony, you know, kind of shitty character. But yeah, it's kind of like around that time, like a lot more people kind of got into it, and it's just kind of fascinating because we had the tools for a long time. It just didn't seem like many people had the confidence that you could, you know, literally do some high kind of modeling with it.
We were having to fight this NURBS conversation, and I was like, it's funny, out of all the application engineers in the company, I was the only one that actually knew how to model something with NURBS because, again, I came from Power Animator and then stick me in Max, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's very powerful. You know, you can do these.
Double rail curve.
Yeah, and it can do, and all the patches can connect, and they can have tangency, which they couldn't in Max. There was some limitations. So we kind of got hijacked, and basically the whole bake went south because our NURBS, we did a NURBS dog, but when you skinned it and you tried to animate it, it was like literally impossible to get anything decent out of it. So it's such a shame because we could have showed them back then that subdivision modeling was the wave of the future, but they just, you know, they were stuck in a pipeline that they didn't want to really, you know, discuss. They just wanted us to do it. So that was just one of those moments that it was fun and interesting, but it definitely didn't work out.
It's kind of cool to have the opportunity. I mean, technically, I'm being a dick here, but like technically at render time, NURBS get converted to poly, so you know you're just skipping ahead, you know, a step ahead. But yeah, like I remember when Rhino came, like the first beta of Rhino 3D came out. It's funny because one of my friends, she's an architect, and she posted something about Rhino on her thing because it's, I guess, used a lot in architecture now, but like I remember the first beta of that because it was free for about a year when it first came out. And like, to me, that was like such a phenomenal NURBS modeler, and also exported to Rib as well, like RB. And like, it's just like, it was really intuitive, really fast. So that was really cool. And like, yeah, Max, that was like, Max took a long time to get NURBS in there, and it was very slow. It wasn't very strong. And then obviously after, I think around Max 4, is when like sub-Ds kind of started to take over in Maya and in everything. So, you know, NURBS kind of started to fade away after that point.
Yeah, it's a shame because, you know, there's been those times when, you know, you as an artist or as a believer or that religion, I mean, I was like, I really wanted to just tell them, like, either do it or don't. Like, don't do it half-assed because it's just such a waste of engineering time and money to do something that, I mean, you look at it now and it's probably like, you think about how much money they spent on trying to put those NURBS in, and like they're not even used anymore. It's such a waste of time. But you can't control the beast, as I learned in my career, because after spending time as an application engineer, I actually wanted to move back to San Francisco and get out of the LA area. And
so you were down on Main Street, or where were you? Well, I'm saying, like, when you said LA area, I was just wondering whether or not you were in the Autodesk office in Santa Monica, because I know you were OC.
There wasn't even one at the time.
Right.
Later on, after I moved back up to the guy up in the North Bay in San Francisco was moving into like writing and tech pubs, so he was kind of getting out of being a sales jockey, and he was moving into technical publications. So I moved up and took his position, and then a couple of guys moved into the LA area. That's when they decided to. That's when the discrete kind of purchase happened through Autodesk, and then they had an office down there, and you know they were trying to sell combustion. So things kind of shifted in that era.
Yeah.
And I was up in the San Francisco area for a while doing that, and then eventually, basically, I became the product manager of 3D Studio after Frank DeLeese moved up to. He became the product manager. I became the product designer of 3D Studio.
Right.
Version 3, 4. I'm trying to remember what version.
I remember 4. The beta was Magma, and it was actually. Yeah. God, I just remember now. So yeah, I remember the beta was Magma, and it was right at the time of the Discrete acquisition, and Discrete always had fucking cool product names, so I was really hoping that this was going to be a rebrand of Max, where it was going to be called Magma officially, because I just, you know, Magma with an asterisk, you know what I mean? So that would have been so cool.
And yeah, and then what's funny is that, like, you know, that was a time when everybody was like asking for it, marketing fought back, and then a couple of years later, like I remember one day the marketing came in, and I hope I don't offend anybody, they came in and like, could we rename the Max renderer and give it a fun, fancy name? And we were all like, you mean the scanline render that's been in there for 10 years already? Like, why would you put any branding behind that renderer. It's not, but they were just looking for things to brand later. So It's funny how again, just a little bit of off timing to really get things going. But I spent, I then went into the development team. I'd done a lot of scripting and was an advocate, and I was very vocal. I'm a New Yorker, so when I got back to the office, I would just be like, you need this. Customers hate this. You have to do this. And I was always very vocal. And Frank DeLeese was the product designer, and he decided to become the product manager. So there was a slot that was open. So I quickly positioned myself for that slot and got it. And then we started kind of working with the teams, which was kind of the most fun. I mean, you're on a phone call. Most of the developers are remote. So we had these phone calls every week to just get on with like the rendering team, the modeling team, animation team, and kind of, guide them. And I was like the only guy that would use the product all the time. So you'd be in a room or at a phone call with like, 5 to 10 guys, and you're trying to explain to them why you want to do it a certain way. And you really had to you had to fight, and they'd come up with like, well, we'll just make that an option. We'll stick it to somewhere. And you're like, no, it has to like make a good decision for you. And don't make me make all these choices or make these dialogue boxes go away because they're annoying and they don't even, they don't do anything. It was a tough job. But some of the big highlights that I did when I was there was working with Steve Anderson on editable poly, which was, the polygon.
Oh, yeah.
It's come out in Magma, but there was no tools around it. There was just like this shell of a concept. So in the next version, we started to kind of dive into taking some of the tools.
Poly tools, I think it was.
Yeah, exactly. And we were kind of building them into the product. And we came up with this little method to have the live kind of tool. And then we came up with these little pop-up dialogues, which would just be live, and you could literally change the settings, which I got annoyed in a recent release when they kind of redid those as some kind of overlays.
Okay, yeah.
And they popped around the screen and moved all over the place when your mouse moved. I was like, oh my God, how did you guys miss this? You know what I mean? This thing should not be popping around the screen. It should be in the same spot every time.
That's right.
Those are the things that I was also learning at the time. I started to kind of research a lot about user interface design and a lot about information display. And I had a team of guys that we started building around the team, which were really fantastic. One of the guys is now at Google. He's one of their like designers, and he was a PhD. And there was this one moment when I was pitching him an idea, and it was like some kind of nerd fest because I told him, I go, hey, what if instead of that, there's a status line at the bottom of 3D Studio and it tells you what's going on? Nobody would probably notice it because it's just some text, and you never notice when it's down there. And I said, what if we had a system when you were doing a command that was a mistake, instead of popping up a dialogue, we could just highlight that text in red. And when you did a successful command, it would make a green text saying that was successful. And when something was giving you a warning, do it in yellow and put it down there. And he looks at me and he goes, well, Fred, it's at the bottom of the screen. You know that your peripheral vision is mainly colorblind, so colors really wouldn't grab your attention. However, because your peripheral vision is really akin to motion, if we just nudge the text with a little bit of a space in front of the whole sentence, it would draw the user's attention down to the bottom and they would read the text.
Wow.
And I think I shit my pants. I was just like, oh, shit, man, that is just, you're brilliant. And he was like, hey, you had a good idea. It was just the implementation that was off. And that guy, I worshiped him from then on in. I always went back to him and I'd ask him for his opinion on a feature. And a lot of times he didn't even know what the feature would do. He'd be like, I don't know what that feature does, but I can see why you're arguing for this implementation. So I worked with that guy and then another guy who was more of a designer. And we had a really good team, and it was really fun for those years. Really kind of like, trying to just break it down and make it a more fun experience for the user.
What was your experience? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What was your experience with particle flow?
That was another project that was like Oleg had done this particle studio at the time, which was kind of
Sandblaster, then Particle Studio. It was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, it was great. And we had Frank DeLeese had approached him and said, hey, we really want to do something with this.
Particle Studio Plus, I think it was in beta.
Yeah. And he basically came on board with the team and started building an engine for particles. Now, the hard part, again, being the designer, is that it took an entire release to get the engine running. And there was all these decisions about, like, how do we handle the old particle systems? And when Oleg got in, he's like, I can't help you with those old particle systems. He goes, there's just thousands of line of code that I would have to, like, re-implement and make backwards compatible. And every time someone heard backwards compatible, the development team would just like cry and shut down. It basically meant that you were never going to innovate. You were just going to have to make things work the way they used to work. And what's the point of that? If it worked great, then no one would be asking to change it. So we decided that we would not touch that old particle system. We'd leave it the way it was, and we'd develop this new particle system. So it took about a whole release for him to even have the engine. Then once he had the engine, basically my job was to come up with a bit of a design sense for it. And give them. The first thing I realized is that they needed a use case for every situation we were going to handle, because you can't just throw a bunch of operators and hope it's good in the end, because someone's going to start working with it and realize it can't do what we want. So we came up with like scenarios like a tree dropping its leaves on the ground, or like, a logo being made out of particles, or, we came up with about 10 different examples of what particles should do. And we plan the attack on how we were going to handle those. And we sat down and looked at lists of operators and tests and which ones would be put together. And we would basically make these mock-ups of this would be the tree falling scenario, and this would be the particles flying around and going through here and doing that. And then we came up with the list of all the tools, and then we started to think about how the interface would be laid out. And I kind of took that as a very creative opportunity. And I remember when I was a kid, I loved playing with like electrical components and electrical circuits, which I got to tell you, if I had more time in my life, I'd do that again, because between Raspberry Pi and the Arduino stuff, you could probably do some really fun stuff now with electrical components and your computer. Back then, I was basically soldering LEDs to 9-volt batteries. You know what I mean? Like, nice. It was about as exciting. I'd make a box with a light and a switch on it. But again, I was probably like 14, and I was like having fun with that. But I love the circuit concept, and I love the idea that resistors and transistors could be kind of grouped up into integrated circuits. So I kind of brought that to Oleg and said, well, what if we thought about it this way? Events were basically integrated circuits, and everything inside the events were just little components. So we just kind of came up with like a mental model, an idea in your head of how the software is working. And we kind of applied that kind of electrical component technology into the particle flow interface, so that you'd make events, and the events would be little circuits, and then inside those were the transistors. And we even kind of used the icons as a little bit circuit looking to kind of give it that kind of flair. Yeah. And I think it was pretty successful. I mean, I still am envious of what
TP thinking particles,
what thinking particles could do. And Autodesk also had an interesting relationship with CBIS and the tools that they were providing. I think particle flow is a much easier approachable tool. It still racks people's brains, but thinking particles is definitely an intense tool. But I think thinking particles in the long run kind of wins in some kind of way.
I think that P-Flow is really great, and I think they both have their place. And with thinking particles, I think it is one of the most amazing pieces of software I've come across for any package. I love the DOPS and Houdini and Maya particles. I dropped Max for a long time because Max's legacy particles just weren't on the level that I can do with Maya. But funny thing is, Maya's particles are pretty much just a lighter version of Dynamation. If you remember that back for Alias, and I just felt like it never really grew too much. And I was really waiting for Maya to kind of step up, and End Particles was around the corner. And I remember sitting in the presentation Brinsmead was giving for End Particles, and I walked out. I was just like, this is it. I'm not really blown away here. And I ended up sitting next to, I think I was at the Western Point Adventure Hotel in downtown LA, and Brinsmead ended up sitting next to me at the bar, and I had to stop myself from strangling him. This is what you've developed over the past couple of years. Come on, but yeah, Maya particles I just felt never really improved at from Maya 1 pretty much. But Maya 1's particles were phenomenal. They were so amazing, and P-Flow coming out, that kind of brought me back. And TP, CBIS is an interesting company. They are really brilliant, and one of the key things is that Autodesk has to focus on, it's kind of like if you look at America as a country moving forward, you've got a very big country to maintain a lot of stuff, but then you get San Francisco, where you've got all these other companies that are literally focusing on one thing and then rolling that out. And suddenly in the last 10 years, the whole world has changed because of all this innovation. And if you rely on the government or something that's a much bigger thing, they can't focus on everything. So I look at that as max, you know.
The model works because, you know, thinking particles has been around for a long time. I think I remember a trade show they were talking about it was a 10-year anniversary of it. So it's been around for a long time. Fume, highly successful for a long time as a plugin. So that whole plugin model definitely worked. I mean, some of them didn't, some of them went away, but, you know, even to this day, like even with the particles, with particle flow, like I think more recently, like now when I started my studio, the first tool I bought was Frost. Mm-hmm. Like, what good are particles if you can't have a good like blob meshing around it? And the ones inside the 3D Studio are not, they're not good enough. And for like a few $100s, you get a copy of Frost, and all of a sudden you have this awesome, you know, blob meshing technology to kind of play with. So there's still plugins that still make the tools usable, you know, even to this day. So it's definitely
I am waiting for the day that Chris Bond gets bought out by, like ThinkBox Software gets bought out by Autodesk.
Just, but again, for me being in the development teams back at Autodesk, whenever I hear theories of like, oh my God, you know, somebody said the other day, oh my God, Adobe's going to buy Nuke and then they're going to try to integrate it. And I was like, are you guys kidding me? Do you know how hard it is to take two pieces of software that are more than a year old and put them together and come out with a new piece of software? We did that at Autodesk. I was in charge of that team, you know, like rebuilding a new piece of software. And eventually it just gets canned because they're like, why would we want to compete? So, you know, I think if ThinkBox was bought by Autodesk, they would bring the technology in, hire a few developers, and then just sit on it, and that'd be it. So I'm really glad that Chris is on his own, and anything I could do to make those guys more successful, I do. I'm a big fan of Deadline. I think it's a huge product for them, and I do love all their little technology products that they build. You know, Frost and Xmesh and all that stuff. It's been really great to see those guys innovate over the years. And Krakatoa, I was a big Krakatoa user for a while because we had gotten a copy of it. And I tell you, it's one of those programs, like unless you start using it a lot, you're not going to know what the F to do with it. Mm-hmm. And I had like 30 machines on my farm, and I had Krakatoa, and I was like, all right, I'm starting to get this. And one of the big things with Krakatoa, for the people that don't understand it, it's a point-based renderer, so it's really fast at rendering, which kind of alleviates rendering as an issue. But the problem actually becomes in
geometry,
simulating and storing all these points. Yep. So if you actually sit there and have particle flow write all these particles to disk, and you want enough of them to make a cloud that's, I remember I did this wave of sand. It'll take like 3 days to calculate the number of particles per frame, because we're talking in the millions, right? Mm-hmm. And after 3 days, you go to render it, and it'll take like 15 minutes to render all 300 frames because it's so fast. So what I was able to do is, like, using Deadline, you'd be able to set Krakatoa to split up the particle simulation into all machines on your farm. So you could divide that simulation time by 30, and as long as the particles weren't interacting and bouncing off each other, you could easily split it up. So I was just playing for weeks on end with, like, people would come over and be like, hey, why is the farm completely busy and there's nothing rendering? And I'm like, oh, I'm calculating some particles out for myself. And then my IT guy came back and he's like, hey, I just noticed that there's bytes used up on this one drive. Like, what's going on there? And I was like, oh, that was my test folder for my particles. You know, I'd be like saving millions of particles to disk and then rendering them. And I don't know why I brought that up, but it's
good.
It's fun.
Like, before ThinkBox happened, I used to work for Frantic and helped them set up one of their offices and worked with those guys for a long time. And that's why I loved the time, was that the software that was being built was all because we needed that software. So like Krakatoa came from initially a movie called Stay, which anyway, it was pretty, it wasn't a massive film, but then Superman Returns, like, we really stepped it up because we needed to do all of this Spore stuff, which was Dr. Richard Bailey. He was doing a lot of, like, he basically is this particle programmer, does chaos math, and we would get his data as like ASCII text files and bring it into Krakatoa to render. And it was a standalone EXE at the time. It wasn't volumetric. It was just literally just like an additive point-based rendering system. But then bit by bit, we kept pushing it, and suddenly you can do like Phong shading and other ridiculous shit with it, and it kept evolving. And what I love about Chris is that when Prime Focus bought Frantic Films out, he owned the rights to certain stereoscopic software that they needed, and so he basically did a trade-off, like, give me the rights to everything else, and I'll I'll jump ship. And so he took a lot of these tools with him, and then set up his own software company, and got Bobo and all those guys to come over and work for him. And now it's like, I caught up with Chris last year, and I was just saying, like, they are kind of the glue of the industry, because like it doesn't matter what software package, they're creating all these tools for everything that literally are the missing link that everyone needs, whether it's Xmesh or whether it's Frost or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, I remember when the first reason we bought Krakatoa is we wanted to do some water splashes, and although RealFlow gave you good like dynamic meshes that were generated, you never got the splashes. And I saw some things done with Krakatoa, and basically I was simulating in RealFlow and then bringing it back to Max and rendering with Krakatoa, and God, it was gorgeous. Like, because the physics was right because it was from RealFlow, and the way it just dealt with just points and kind of like volumetric spray, it just looked fantastic. So it was definitely a win for that job. And then after that, it was just, hey, anything else you want to do with Krakatoa, you can do just by playing with like volumes and, kind of deep shading going on in it. It was really gorgeous. So fun stuff.
I love it. And we'll start moving through a bit quicker, because I really want to dive into some of the really cool stuff that we both want to talk about that you're doing right now. But I will just quickly ask a couple of questions. One is, I'm kind of curious, what games were you doing at Crystal Dynamics? Because this is a while back. It's like, what projects were they?
Crystal was funny. I was there about a year, and I came in there, and they were originally going to put me on this project that was kind of like, it was grimy and it was dirty, and I forgot the name of the project, but eventually it turned into, I think, a Punisher license. But I didn't end up on that team. I ended up on another team with this very simple game that was kind of like the idea of a side scroller in 3D. And they didn't have a name for it at the time, and I was very happy to work on anything. And what was funny is that the entire engine basically worked off of a Max file, or actually a 3D Studio DOS file, because that file format was open-ended. You could read it. So they had a whole system, like you could put objects in the world, and just by giving them a name, and the name was a coding system. And I had this like 50-page document on all the codes you can do with an object. Like, for example, if you want to make something a trigger, it would start with TR or something like that. Right. And if something was a receiver, it'd be RC. So you could basically have a box, and you just put it along a path, and when the character went through the box, it would trigger something, which was very clever. So as a 3D artist, you were making the gameplay. You were actually developing the game. So the game designers were using 3D Studio DOS, and the artists were using 3D Studio DOS. So there was a lot of times, like, we would show the game designers, like, they weren't artists. They didn't even know anything about it. To basically build a level, they would just put a camera and animate a camera across 100 frames. And that camera, like, target was the path of the character. And the camera that was following the target, that was looking at the target, was the camera for the game. So you could just make 4 or 5 cameras and just kind of have them animating from frame 0 to frame 100, and that would create a path. So you turn on paths, and you could see the character's route. And that was how the game worked. It was really awesome. So they just sat me down at a desk and kind of gave me this document and walked away and kind of started playing with it for like a day or two. And they came back, and I had built this whole level. I was like, hey, check this out. I have this guy who walks through, the big door comes down, it slams him. It's a hit object, and it's a trigger. And I was showing them what I did with the document. And they were like, oh, my God, we thought we would have to like spend 2 weeks training you on how this all works. And to be honest with you, we're not even going to have you do that. We're going to have you do the art after the levels are built. So it was really interesting. And the game ended up being called Pandemonium.
Okay.
Which... Well, I was like, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the game, and I was in England, and he's like, oh my God, Pandemonium! I love that game. I played the shit out of it. So it was definitely more popular in the UK than it was here in the States. But after a year, they came around and they were doing some layoffs, and they literally got rid of all the people that I'd become friends with in that first year. They were on the wrong teams, and they were trying to cut back. And so I looked up, and like all my friends were getting these, pink slips and severance packages. And I was like, wow, this kind of sucks, Mm-hmm. And I wasn't sure what to do. And they made this announcement at a company meeting, and they were like, California law states that when we do this big of a layoff, that anybody that wants to just take the severance package option can, even if you're not getting laid off.
Wow.
And that was really interesting to me. And I was like, so you're telling me I can quit and you're going to give me the same layoff package as everybody else? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, well, I quit. And my producer called me into his room, and he was like, Fred, you understand that we want to keep you on. We're really excited about you.
And you're like, free money.
Yeah, they were like, listen, you're the least behind on the project because everything was measured in how many weeks you were behind on your tasks. And nobody was caught up. Nobody was at the front. And they were like, Fred, you're only 2 weeks behind. Everybody else is at least 8 to 16 weeks behind. We want to keep you on. And I was like, no, I get that. But you're going to hand me a bunch of cash to go get another job. And I can get another job second. So why wouldn't I take the severance package? And I think they were a little upset by that. But at the same time, I was like, I don't necessarily want to stay here. And all my friends are getting scattered to the wind. So that's when I had talked with Autodesk and I heard that they were looking for an application engineer. So I basically took the severance package and walked away.
Did you walk out and you like think you can?
And my dad at the time was like, and my dad was like, you got to stick with it. The only way they're going to respect you is if you have a resume and you stay at a job for like 5 or 10 years. And I was like, Dad, this isn't the old days. I'm like, I'm going to double my salary by leaving. I'm literally going to walk out the door and get a better job somewhere else with more money. I said, this isn't how it goes anymore. They don't look at your longevity. If I stay here too long, they'll think I'm not exciting. So I was like, it doesn't work that way. So I had to really kind of break my dad's generation to say, like, you don't stay at a job for a long amount of time. You move and you move up. I quickly kind of left that and I got a job making more money with some stock options and, some stock purchase plan. And, it was a smart move. I was able to buy a house by working for Autodesk. So
that's
it was
great.
a good move.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah.
And I'll jump ahead because that way we can segue a little bit into everything else. But there's one question I want to ask, and it'll put you on the spot a little bit. But based on like the career that you've had so far, I mean, you've done so much and you've learned so much, and now you're like literally, going in leaps and bounds even further. But like, if you were to start out in the 3D industry again from scratch, but in 2015, so rather than it being, I think, 1993, if you were to dive into it now, like, what would be the steps you would take to kind of get as far ahead as you could in the quickest amount of time? And I know that's a tricky one, but I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no, that's a good question because if it was me now, I would probably shoot myself in the head because I'd be like, I don't want to do this all over again. But I'm imagining me as a 21-year-old that wants to tackle it. I think the first thing is you got to find out where your skill set lies. Because, like, I could easily see, like, right now, I'll tell you, I don't have the best effects guy at my studio. I really wish I had a guy that was awesome at lighting and rendering and good at management, scene management, but that was always willing to, like, go home and learn some new effects thing, Fume should be your first tool out of your pocket for that. Then you should learn thinking particles and learn real flow and learn all that shit. I don't have that guy. So the first thing I would be thinking about is what part do I want to go into? Because I feel like every kid out of school, when I interview them, I say, which area do you like the best? And they say modeling. And I was like, oh, great. Well, you realize everybody says modeling, first of all. Like, everybody wants to be a modeler, and not everybody's great at it. And to be a modeler at this point, you got to be a sculptor, and you got to be a pretty amazing sculptor to be a modeler, Focusing on hard surface modeling seems like, that's just stage one. But, can you sculpt somebody's face and make it look like them? If you can't, you're probably not going to be a modeler. You're probably not going to be in that area. So find your discipline would be the first thing I would try to do. And I know mine would not be full on sculpting. I would probably have to be in the effects arena. So that's, I think, the first decision is like, where do you want to go? And then again, just like I tell kids now, I'm like, just because you went to school and you graduated, that doesn't mean shit. Mm-hmm. I want to see a guy that goes home on the weekends and learns something new and brings it and shows it to me. That guy's going to move up in my organization because that's how I got it. I didn't get taught this. There was no school. We literally would just go home and we'd play with software and we'd try to figure it out and we'd do cool stuff with it. And then that cool stuff would be showcased. You'd show it to somebody, or Jesus, you put it on a VHS tape back in the day. Now you could just put it on your Facebook page. So it would just be to, like, make it your life and really own it, make it a part of what you live and breathe and do that. And I did that for many years. Learning MaxScript became a goal of mine. And then that was kind of parlayed into, like, learning more. Going and learning, every different simulation package for a while was what I was doing. And that helped me do different things and get a little notoriety for that. And then, of course, if you really want to rise up, Allan, as well, this as well as anybody, is you have to be your own PR and marketing person and really kind of...
Why do I get that so often?
Get your face out there. But that's also a part of it, too, is just, just being good, being able to go to a meeting and convince somebody that you can handle the job without overselling yourself. It's kind of the number one thing I tell young people. I'm like, you come in, you meet with me, I go, look me in the face, you lie to me, I'm going to figure it out, and you're going to look like an asshole when I figure it out. So undersell yourself and over-deliver. That's always the best thing to do. Don't push back on notes. That's another one. I feel like I'm giving like these life lessons.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
If you get a note, you're even if you're cringing in your seat because you have no idea how you're going to do it, you should just say, I'll see what I can do. And then give a time estimate when it's appropriate. I tell artists that all the time. I hear an artist and they're like, well, we want to do this. And they're like, well, that's really complicated because I have to do this and that and that and that. And I pulled the guy aside and I was like, first of all, the director doesn't give a shit how complicated it is. If it was easy, it wouldn't be called work. It's going to be hard. And I go, second of all, just tell them how long it's going to take because that's what they're judging by.
Yep.
When can we have it? If it's going to take a week, we're not going to do it. If it's going to take you a day, we're going to do it. So just, shut your mouth. Don't tell them how complicated it is. Don't get into like how hard it is, and don't push back with your own opinions. Just tell them how long it'll take, and that's going to get you to rise above the others very fast. It's the people that are really easy to work with that do climb that ladder a lot faster than anybody else. So don't be difficult.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's really cool. I mean, yeah, I think that's one of the big things that, especially earlier in your career, you're gonna, first of all, someone says like, yeah, I don't like it, like that bit over there looks like shit, try and make it bigger or rework that, and people's egos get in the way. They're like, no, like, I did this perfectly. And it's just like, look, you're being paid. Like, I always use the analogy, and I'm sure everyone's heard it to death now, but like, I just dumb it down to like, you're painting a house. I use that because for me, I cannot think of something simpler than, I'm not gonna, if someone tells me to paint it a certain color and I'm like, that's fucking ugly, I'm not gonna talk them out of it. I'm gonna say, okay, great, I'll go do that, and I'll come back when it's done. And yeah, I think it's so important just to be able to say yes. And, you're being paid. Like, there's a guy I worked with who, always told me as long as they have the money, then I've got the time. And I've followed that my whole life. Like, I'll go and I'll make something look like shit if that's what they want.
Yeah. As long as they're paying you to do it again, that's fine.
Yeah.
When you're bidding out work, which is where the effects industry gets into its trouble, is when you're bidding out a shot and you give them a cost, and then they just think they could change their minds 100 different times. That's where you get into trouble. But most of the time, the artist, you're getting paid per hour. You're getting paid to be in a seat. So yeah, if I just told you to paint the whole house green, and then I decide it's going to be blue, you might be frustrated because you really don't want to paint the house again. But if you don't, you can go home.
Yep.
Sit in your ass. You know what I mean?
That's like, right. That's totally right.
Paid to do it, so do it again and again and again. And I tell you, from the top side, the more you do it, the better it looks. Whenever you tell somebody to come back and reapproach something, usually they end up doing it better and faster, and it looks better in the end. So
that's exactly it. Actually, there's someone I know, and she just actually today it's her last day on her job, and she got all frustrated because she's quit her job because she didn't want to work, and then literally on like the third last day, they're like, hey, like, we're in a bit of a bind. Do you mind working an extra week for us? And she got really frustrated. Like, it was insulting that they did that. I'm like, wait a minute, you got like an extra week of work offered to you? Like, that's money. Like, you don't have anything lined up. Like, why don't you take that? So, like, yeah, I would be like, great. Okay, well, this means I got more jobs. Like, I can get more of an opportunity to, solidify myself at the company. Then fuck yeah. Like, why not? So, yeah.
And they're asking you back. That means they like what you do. So you should be excited to stay there. I have a hard time with that. I mean, we could probably talk for another hour just on the business of VFX, because now that I'm in a position where I am hiring people, it's hard to know when to roll them off. Sometimes jobs will linger, and you're getting notes back, and you kind of can't give everybody the exact even start date because you're not sure when the job's going to land, and it's really frustrating as an owner now because I really can't control it 100%. And that's why I decided that when I started this effects studio that it was really just a means to an end, but I really wanted to do something where I could control the creative, and I could actually control when the schedule starts, and I could control how to keep my effects team busy, which is why I ended up starting Refuge Studios, which was the second company I started this last year.
Yeah. So when you, because you're in Portland now, so like you went over to work on, like, you're associated with the TV show Grimm, and that's kind of that's my smooth segue here. But yeah, like, so what was your involvement on that show?
Well, Grimm came to Portland. It's an NBC Universal property, and it came to Portland to shoot probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I don't exactly remember when, but we're on the 5th season, so it's about 5 years ago. And they basically came up to Portland, and Portland has a bit of an incentive program for film and TV. So they were like, okay, well, let's send a bid out for effects. And they literally hit the website of like who's in Portland to do effects. And the studio I was working at, got a call just like the rest of them. And my boss pulled me in, and he was like, hey, you want to work on this bid for like a TV show involving like, I don't know, some kind of like creepy creatures. And he was so casual about it. And I was like, yeah, why wouldn't I want to work on that? I'm sick of doing freaking animated cereal commercials. Like, if I have to do one more Apple Jacks commercial where, Cinnamon makes some kind of, Rastafarian reference, I don't want to do that. Like, let's do something cool,
Yeah.
So he was like, all right, well, here's the creative and here's what's going on. So I kind of was like, all right, we got a chance to bid on this show. So they gave us some artwork, and I'm sure they were bidding all over companies in LA and other companies in Portland. And I kind of went to town. I was like, all right, we're going to build this creature. And they wanted basically someone to transform from one creature to another, like from a human to this creature they had sent in the artwork. And I started to kind of model and sculpt this version of this witch that they had sent us a design for. And I got like the front receptionist to come on to one of the stages, and I had my camera guy bring a camera out, and we threw her on a blue screen, and we filmed her like growling at the camera, and then we took it back, and I tracked it and in PF track and put a head in and started to render it. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, this looks so freaking terrible. And I can't explain why, but it looked like some kind of terrible zombie dating video, because there was no story. There was no energy. There was no concept. There was nothing. It was just like somebody standing in front of a green screen. We put a background behind them. But again, the lighting wasn't perfect to the background. And you know how you could always just feel it when it's not really planned out. And she was just growling, and this thing was just, and also, to hit somebody's art in just a couple days and make it exactly what they wanted as a creature was like almost impossible. So I was like, oh crap. And I spent like 3 days doing this, and I thought my boss was going to freak out and be like, what the fuck, it's useless. So I kind of went back in his office, caught him when he was just off a phone call. And I was like, hey, I'm going to need another 3 days, and I'm going to need the camera guy, and I'm going to need all this stuff again. And he was like, what happened? And I was like, well, it just didn't go right. He's like, all right, just do what you need to do. So I was like, all right, cool. So I came back at it again, and I was like, all right, let me think of the motivation of this scene. You know what I mean? Like, let me put together something that makes more sense. Who is this guy? And let's use somebody else. So it was another technical director at the studio at the time, my friend Josh. And I was like, Josh is really thin. He's just so fucking thin. He's got a metabolism that's just so, he's just a really thin guy. Right. Matthew McConaughey, actually, too. Okay. And so I was like, dude, you're going to be my new star in this. And we're going to shoot it outside. We're going to shoot it like, it's some nice, depth of field. And we're going to go out of this corner. And we're going to shoot 2 shots. You're going to be walking down the street and you see somebody. And it just angers you so much that you turn into this monster. And then you turn out and you go get him, And that little bit of a story was enough to kind of grasp onto. So we literally just did the same thing. We went outside, threw him down the street. I was like, walk down the street, and then we got a close-up of him, nice shallow depth of field. And I was like, you see somebody, and they fucking piss you off, you morph. And then, so we did that. Mm-hmm. And that footage came out so much better because, we had the camera outside. We didn't have to put in a background. We used natural light. And he was really drawn out and thin. So instead of making him look like their character, I decided, well, fuck that. I'm not going to hit their character. And all they're going to do is look at the image that somebody painted and look at my test and be like, well, it doesn't look like this character, right? Mm-hmm. So I said, well, let's do a new character. It'll prove the concept. So I decided to just make him look like a skeleton or like a zombie. So looked at some good reference. The Walking Dead had just came out. So I was like, yeah, this is a great reference for good zombie makeup. And I sculpted a zombie, and that came out really good because it was a lot of like decaying flesh and like weird little stringy bits of hair coming off his head. So he kind of like walked down the street, and we had good tracking on it. And he turned into this zombie. We did a little bit of animation to make him look angry, and we kind of morphed him in and morphed him out, and it looked cool. We put a couple of like really eerie tones on it and some bone cracking sounds, and the audio really just jumped it up another 100%. And all of a sudden we had this quick little video or this little movie that looked fantastic. So we submitted that and landed the pilot, which was pretty great.
Awesome.
We worked on about 30 shots for the pilot. The problem with that is it's a pilot, so like everybody's involved, everybody from the director, the visual effects supervisor, the EPs for the show, and then the EPs for NBC, and it was just really hard. I really wish they would have let the art director just kind of run with it and then let him make all the calls, but there was a lot of people to make happy, so it was tough, and we got the pilot done. But I don't know what happened, but something happened outside of my realm. I was just like VFX supervisor. So, we got to go on set and capture HDRIs and kind of watch what they were doing. And they would even ask us, like, is this going to be possible? And I was like, well, can you get the tree out of the way and shoot it a little bit more to the left, and like not cross over so we have so much roto. And they were really, responsive. It was a really long night shoot that second night, but we did the pilot and I think it came out pretty good. But for some reason, they went to they awarded us shots and then another studio. For some reason, they went to the other studio, and I think the other studio owner was just, I don't know, slick, and he made the right phone calls and really made somebody believe that they could do the work. So we kind of lost it after the pilot, and that was okay. Hey, whatever. It's not I don't own the place. I was just a VFX supervisor working there, so I really didn't have any responsibility for why we lost it. It wasn't like they hated the work; we just lost the work. And then we get a phone call like 2 months later, and I get brought into a room and I hear Grimm wants us to come back and work on the show again.
Nice.
Like, really? And they were like, yeah, apparently, they did give the work to another studio and they flooded them so hard. We're now on episode 6 and they're just starting to do effect shots for episode 2, and episode 1 isn't even approved. So they started to realize that they couldn't give it all to one small shop. They really needed to kind of job episode work out. So we came in from the pilot. We came back into episode 6. Yeah, I mean, like I said, they came back. They gave us a call, and they were like, we want you to come back and work on episode 6. I think it was on season 1. And to be honest with you, the Grimm story, we could probably do a whole nother podcast because the production pipeline, the creatures, the development process it's pretty intricate of how we got to where we are because, we're now we just finished season 4, and we're just getting like more and more work from it because it's, the show wants to grow and you get faster and you could be able to do more and more for them. So after 6, that episode 6, we worked on that for another year. And at the end of the second season, I just kind of was done at that other studio. And that's when I thought, I should leave, and I should, it's getting stagnant. I don't know if you've ever got that feeling where you're just doing the same thing and there's no growth. And it was at that point, which was probably a good segue. It was at that point that I realized I was working at a place with a bunch of artists, and they all had cool ideas. And I had my own cool ideas. And, I was like, how do I get my ideas done? And I really started to realize that, I think I want to be a producer. And I didn't really know that at the beginning. But, I was at that company, and there was this moment. There was this guy there. And I'm going to kind of tell you the story about how Medieval Monsters came to be. There was a guy there, and he was a concept artist and just a 2D artist. And he did some 3D, but he was basically in the paint department. And he was a big guy, like big frame, older guy. Salt and pepper hair, really long. Every once in a while, he would braid his hair and come in with a kilt on. And one of those times he came in, he's got a kilt on. He's got the Star Wars Tatooine kind of shoes. And, he looks all like he just came from Scotland. And I was like, dude, fucking put a sword in your hand and you could be fighting like monsters, And he was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. And I was like, dude, we should do that just for fun. Like one weekend, let's get you out there. Let's do some fake shots and we'll just build some big creature and we'll have you battle like a big monster, And he was like, that'd be awesome. I love monsters. And he's like, I'll even design it for you. I'll sketch it up. So we started kind of talking about that. But, at the time I wasn't a young chicken anymore. So I had like a kid and probably an ex-wife at the time. And, life gets away from you. So we just never had that time to kind of just play with that idea and kind of go forward. And then there's a cool little theater in town, the Hollywood Theater, which is kind of ironic, but they do all kinds of independent movies and different special events. And they were actually going to do a weekend where they were going to show this movie Troll Hunter.
Right.
And Troll Hunter was, we were all like, oh, it sounds interesting. It's like independent, it's getting good reviews. So a bunch of us from the studio went out and saw Troll Hunter. And I tell you, I came back and I was like, that was fucking awesome. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've seen the movie, but it's...
I haven't, but yeah, I've got a mutual friends with the director, and like, yeah, I mean, it's exactly what we're about to talk about. I mean, it's a perfect example of someone in 3D, like Neil Blomkamp, even, 3D artist who's like, I'm gonna go and do my thing. So fuck yeah, I love that idea.
So I'm hoping to get added to that list of people that want to do that. So Troll Hunter came out. I saw Troll Hunter. I was like, that was great. It had like, it was done like a documentary style, and it had just enough trolls to keep you interested the whole time, and it was really fun and exciting. So, later that year, I started thinking about this monster and fighting monsters, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool to have a guy that goes around an ancient world and fights these monsters, these mythical giant beasts? And I was like, that'd be cool, but I wanted to make it fun too, and I think it just started to come together, the idea that like, well, he's not a hero, he's not a swordsman, he's actually he battles with his wits, and he actually likes these monsters. And then I started to realize this guy could be like the late Steve Irwin. He's a naturalist, he's a lover of monsters. He loves these creatures, and he doesn't always want to kill them. He wants to understand them more. And I was like, this would be good. This is a good kind of concept. And then I finally broke when I realized he talks to the camera. There's a camera crew following him. Let's shoot it like a Discovery Channel nature show.
That's awesome.
Let's shoot it like what's Bear Grylls? Bear Grylls is always doing the adventure stuff.
Yeah.
By himself, talking to the camera, and then he does.
So wait, is it going to be Steve Irwin, or is it going to be a guy who's like peeing into a cup every 5 minutes and drinking it because he's out in the wild?
Well, the funny thing is, in the voiceover of the first demo we did, at the end of it, we did a little voiceover, and the actor who plays Tor, he kind of just was ad-libbing, and he was like, on the way back, my partner had to drink his own urine, because he knows Bear Grylls, he's seen Bear Grylls, so he got the concept, and so we kind of like to mess with Bear Grylls, Jeremy Wade, Steve Irwin. He's got a little bit of them all in there. Mm-hmm. But I really started to realize it was a great idea when I realized it's like a documentary, and he actually talks to the camera, but nobody else in the world sees this camera that he's talking to. So he almost comes across just as a lunatic, which is even better because that's who his character is. So that was the idea that I decided to call it Beast Tracker. And I was like, he's the Beast Tracker, And that was the kind of working title for a while when I had it in my head, and I started to kind of think about it, and I was like, we could do this, Started writing, and I wrote like a pilot episode, and I kind of decided that I was going to take a section of it and do a little test video. So, what does any fun artist do is you go find your friends with a few cameras, and you decide that you're going to, shoot one weekend, which I had everybody on board. Everybody's excited. And one of the animators at the studio, really talented character animator, we're out at lunch one day, and I'm telling him about this thing, and I said, I need an actor. And he was like, I'm an actor. And I was like, oh, well, I did not know you're an actor. And he's like, I would love to play the role. And I was like, and he's a tall guy, he's about my height, he's like 6'4". And I was like, interesting, and I started looking at him, and I was like, I'm down with this. Let's do it. He's like, here, check out my video. So I went to his website and checked out some of the little videos he did, and he's actually pretty good. So I was like, all right, I'm in. I wrote this whole scene for him, and then he came back and he was like, listen, give me a partner, give me a second, give me a sidekick, because it's better to do a little bit of the improv and the acting when there's somebody that I work with. So he's like, I have a buddy, he's a little bit older, but he would love to be involved too. I said, okay, let's invent another character. So we invented another character. I wrote a couple of lines in for him, and we decided we were going to do this shoot. And then the first thing that I realized is like, okay, I have a location, I have actors, I have all my friends that are willing to help hold cameras and, take HDRIs and do everything. I don't have costumes. So I was like, all right, this is no problem. I can do costumes by myself. And I was like, cool. So I went to like Joanne Fabrics, which, dude, I'm like known at Joanne Fabrics. All the old ladies are my friends there because I've done all my own costumes. And I went there and I got some shit. I put it together and I put this outfit on myself at home. And I looked like a caveman, like literally from like 10,000 BC. I looked like a caveman. And I was like, okay, this is not what I was going for. And I quickly realized that, man, if I don't come up with the right costumes, you can have the best lighting, the best cameras, and best CG. These guys are going to look stupid,
I'm just going to segue for a second and say that the thing that we were talking about earlier before we started recording, maybe that caveman thing might be useful there.
Yeah.
Anyway,
maybe I was influenced by my other ideas and my projects, and I did the caveman.
But yeah, so what happened then?
Well, I decided that just like any good artist, you don't just do something by thinking you know what it is. You got to look at reference and you got to break down what it is you're doing at first. Just like a modeler that says, hey, I'm going to build a sci-fi alien. Well, you don't just go into ZBrush. Some people do, and I hate those people. They just go and they just ZBrush something out of nothing. But most people are going to go look at reference, let it influence them, get a design, and then move forward. So I decided I needed something. So I just watched Valhalla Rising, which was kind of it felt like it was in the era of what I was trying to match. So I kind of looked at that movie and looked at like the costumes, and they did a great job. And I basically kind of handpicked my pieces from that movie. And then a friend of mine who's just, like one of my kids' friends' mothers, works at a clothing company and is a designer. And I was like, hey, I need some help with some sewing. And she literally came over for 2 weekends and we busted out these costumes. And she was awesome because we went to the store and we were looking for a cape. And she was like, I want you to use this terry cloth. And I was like, but that looks like a towel. And she's like, it is a towel. It's a towel material. And she goes, it's probably going to look great on camera because it's got so much texture. And she was so spot on. Like, if I would have done any of the material, it would look nice and smooth. But the terry cloth brought out like a lot of texture that I just didn't even know. So my main guy is literally wearing a big piece of towel material. Nice. And it was freaking awesome. It drapes well. It's just fantastic. So she helped me build the costumes. And once I had the costumes, man, you put them on an actor and all of a sudden the actors just fell into their roles. And then I rented a sword or a couple swords, even though we weren't going to do any swordsman work. And I gave it to the main guy. And I tell you, it was like a moment. You hand him that sword, and he became Tor Dragerhorn, this beast tracker, this guy that was going to go and look for monsters. So a bunch of us, we shot a couple hours of footage out one day, and we got this whole scene kind of down. I went back and I edited it, put it together, and I was ready to put some VFX in and put this video together. But unfortunately, again, life gets in the way. I didn't really have enough money to pay anybody, so I had to really ask for favors. And I don't know if you've ever asked for animation favors, but animation can't be done in a day. When somebody really wants to put character work in, it's going to take them a week. Yeah. And that 1 week turned into 3 days, and then that guy moved on to a different project, and I gave it to somebody else, and then a year later, somebody else. I mean, it literally took 3 years to get anything done. So I was just kind of developing the idea and working on it. I did some stuff myself, dreaming it up. And then just last November, I decided the time was right. I'd been to a couple conferences on TV and kind of met some people that I thought were going to be the right people. One of them was the executive vice president at Animal Planet. And I'd met him just quickly for a handshake and asked him about the future of what they were looking for. And I basically asked him if they were interested in scripted programming. And he was like, we're interested in anything that involves, animals and is going to bring in an 18 to 35-year-old male audience. He said, we're really looking to get the male audience, the younger male audience. We have a lot of women. We have a lot of pet shows. We're really looking for something neat, different. And I was like, okay, I'm going to follow up with this guy. So it took about, 10 months before I followed up with him. And I basically put together a quick little sizzle video of what I thought was going to be Beast Tracker. It turns out Beast Tracker had already been done. Somebody already owned the rights to the name. Right. So I had to come up with a new name. And I thought, well, it's kind of medieval. And, it's not actually England in the 1600s, but medieval is a good word to describe it. And he's fighting these monsters. So medieval monsters kind of came out of it. And then I realized that Animal Planet had river monsters on their network. And I thought, well, it's kind of like that. I mean, the guy literally, it's like river monsters, but it's not. It's in a medieval time with this fake world and all this other stuff. So I rebranded as Medieval Monsters, and I sent these guys the sizzle video. And, I sent it after pondering over the edit for weeks and thinking about what I was going to say in this email and all this stuff. And I literally sent it off to him, and I was like, all right, well, might not hear back. It might take forever. Who knows? It's time to go and do something else. And I swear I got a call back the next day, and they were like, hey, can we schedule a phone call this week? And they kind of fast tracked it. We got on the phone and they were like, oh my God, this is hilarious. It's funny. It's comedic and it's exciting. And we've never seen anything like it, and they were looking for something in their programming around that. So, we talked a couple more times and they were like, hey, we want you to actually develop a full demo for us that we can bring back to our executives and show them. And then we'll decide if we want to do a couple episodes of the show. And I was like, that's fantastic. So we basically started a full-on production around that. I got my director involved, and he's been with the project the whole time. We needed a DP, so we got a friend of mine named Bryce, and he was working on Portlandia here at the time, so he was available. And I got a couple producers, and we basically planned a shoot, and we rewrote a whole other story for this demo. I asked them, I said, do you want to just do a scene out of the pilot, like a scene in the beginning, a scene in the end? And they were like, I don't know. If you don't tell a whole story, we don't know if everybody's going to get it, just by watching the scene. Yeah. So I literally constructed a 12-minute storyline. And basically, we went out and shot that in 2 days. And then we came back to the studio and posted it and did all the VFX. And it came out phenomenal. I mean, it really hit everything we were looking to do. It was entertaining. It was funny. It was exciting. The VFX turned out great. If anything, I just want more VFX in it.
Nice.
And it came together really well. So they basically came back to the office and they said, well, we're going to go talk to everybody about it. And they came back and said, well, we haven't decided. It's really a different property. It's unlike anything we've done before. We're going to air it. And we're going to put it on TV, and we're going to see how it goes. And then maybe we can get a little bit more of a test audience and see how people react to it. And then we'll make the call after that. So basically, this next Saturday coming up on the 23rd, if you look at the schedule, it's like at 11:02 p.m. in the middle of the night. They're going to air the 12-minute demo and see how it does. So I'm really excited about that, and I kind of want everybody to go and watch that so that whoever's got those crazy Nielsen boxes that tell them about ratings, I want to get those people to watch it so that they can realize that this has an audience, and then they'll pick up the show. So it's really exciting time right now.
That's cool. And I'm just curious, like, is there a way to go online and do it, or do you literally have to be one of the select people that views it, or how's it work? I've always been curious about that.
I don't know how ratings technically work. I would imagine by now it's not just these Nielsen boxes in homes, but that online viewing becomes also tracked because that's the easiest way to do that. What they're going to do is they're going to air it next Saturday. We're going to have a little PR and press before that. I'm talking to them about getting it on the Animal Planet website. So hopefully by the time this podcast drops, there'll be a good website to go hit on it and kind of see some of the teasers and stuff. And then once they air it, they're actually going to put it on their website so that people can go and watch it there. So we'll definitely have to follow up and get people to go watch it if they miss it at 11:02 p.m. on a Saturday night, which is not the best time slot. But again, it's a little bit of an experiment. Animal Planet doesn't really know what to tell anybody about it because they're like, well, we want to test it out in the waters and then we'll order some episodes. So you really might see this demo, and then you might not see an episode 1 until like next May because we'll be in production on the show.
It's always one of those tricky things, like kind of getting something like that green lit. It's you never know how many kind of loops it's got to go through. But
no, it can take time. And I've talked to a lot of people now, and they're like, man, it can often take a year just before you get the green light. So you can literally be fiddling around in development for a year before it happens. So, and I'm still on that path. It started back in November. It might be until November before we get the green light. But it's funny how that time seems to fly. And as I go along in this process, we were talking a little bit earlier about, going from being an artist to, now I'm actually trying to be an executive producer, and there's a big range in there. And the only thing that makes you an executive producer is that time, is like doing it, learning, going out, experiencing it. And I've learned a lot along the way, and I'm really excited about continuing to learn that part of the business because it's completely different than what I've done before. But I'm really excited because it gives us our own creative control. I mean, literally, we were working on the edit and we had 4 shots. It ended up being 2 because once we worked on the edit, we cut out a couple shots and we didn't need them. And they were VFX shots that cost money, The idea of having a VFX and a production studio tightly wound together, and especially with me as the showrunner, I'm allowed to kind of decide when we don't need to spend a bunch of money, Mm-hmm. We'll pick a different shot and we'll go a different way in the edit because it'll just be more cost prohibitive. And I'm excited about that. Like, I think I got a good amount of VFX on screen for a 12-minute piece. And they came out, pretty good. I'm sure you could break them down and pick them apart as you can. But it came out really good. I'm excited about it. We actually added, there was right before we shot it, I'm literally like writing the 15 pages that we were going to go shoot. And I had this moment where I forgot about a character that I wanted to develop a long time ago. So I had my 2 guys, and they go into this town, and there's this dilemma, and there's this witness, and the witness is kind of suspect because he's cross-eyed and they don't really believe what he says. And there's this whole mystery. And that's every show is really about the mysteries behind these monsters. And our guy kind of brings the real or the artificial science to the table and explains the mysteries. It's a little bit like Mythbusters in a way. But I'm writing that pilot, and it was like a day before I had to submit it to the executives. And then I remembered that I always loved the mechanical owl from Clash of the Titans. Okay, right? You with me?
Yep.
And I'm like, I was out of town on the weekend. I think I was somewhere with my girlfriend at the coast, and I'm in this antique shop, and they have this little case, and inside the case is a little blue and yellow bird made out of clock parts. And that went off in my head, and I was like, oh, that's right. I remember thinking about that owl from Clash of the Titans, which was terrible back in the day, but it was a cool idea. Mm-hmm. So that weekend, I wrote in a new character, and I invented a bird, and it's a real bird. It's not mechanical. And his name is Nico. And Nico the bird only has one wing because he was found by our main character and he was damaged by a monster. He's a small little bird, got killed or got hurt with his wing. So he's missing a wing. And our hero basically constructed out of early technology, basically a mechanical wing for the bird. So we created this bird that literally has a strap-on mechanical wing. And what's great about it is he's another character in the show, and he's not always in there. And he can fly off and come back, which is also great for VFX. We don't have to have, if he was a dog, he'd have to be in every shot. Yep. But because it's a bird, he could fly away and come back. What's also great about the bird is that he's a writing tool. When you're at the point in the script where you don't know what to do, it's like, well, send the bird out on a mission, and maybe he'll find something and come back. So the bird not only became a great character for the show, he also became a great vehicle for storytelling and kind of fact-finding. And then I also introduced the idea that the sidekick and the bird just don't get along. Malik is the sidekick, and I decided that the bird and the sidekick just don't get along. So there's this kind of weird dynamic between the three of our heroes. So we have two heroes that are humans and one artificial bird with an artificial wing that actually is in the story. And I'm really excited about that character because it's like, I don't know, it's just that it's like Brian from Family Guy in a way. It's like
I was just thinking that too.
You have a talking dog. I have a bird with a mechanical wing, and I think it's just a great little addition. And I think it actually gave me something. I think my daughter would also watch the show too. It's definitely funny and it definitely leans on adult humor, but it's a family show. It's something you could watch, with your 12-year-old. And I'm 45. I definitely love the idea of the show. So
that's really awesome, man. I love it. And I love the fact that, as we were talking earlier about, like, you as a 3D artist being able to, we talked about briefly, like, we come from working time for dollars, and usually we're working brutal amounts of time for dollars, and it's such a competitive industry we're in, and I think that all of us have that kind of want and need to go out and do our own thing, and most of us either are too scared to do it, or they just don't know where to start, and for you to actually be like, okay, I see some opportunities, and I think that we all get opportunities all the time, just most of us are kind of blind to the fact that, like, oh, if I connect this and this and this, like, this could, be a whole amazing thing. So, I love the fact that you've taken that initiative and, like, kind of stepped up and, several times already in your career, you've already kind of pushed forward and created, your own future, your own opportunities.
Yeah, that is the key. If you don't know your future, to create it yourself, definitely a good option. It's funny because I always remember back to when I said I had all these friends and they all wanted to do these projects, and now it's a couple of years later and I'm actually having the ability to do it, and I feel extremely blessed that everything has worked out so far. I mean, again, the show's in development, it's not picked up, but I'm so excited about it, and I now can see the potential that I know that we're going to be able to get some properties on air. It's not impossible, and if you have a good sensibility, it can happen. But I'm also seeing myself now as that kind of person who can then help all these other artists now too. It's like you not everybody should have to go out and create their own production company to do this. And that's the first thing one of those first lessons I learned is that ideas are worthless. They're really not worth anything. No one's going to buy your idea. Yep. If anybody thinks that they're going to have this cool idea and write up this cool pitch book and someone's going to walk along and hand them a boatload of cash for their idea, they're crazy. So don't even waste your time. What really matters is taking an idea and making it actually happen. And that's where you can become valuable, and that's where you can sell a property. But even at that point, doesn't mean that somebody's going to hand over boatloads of money. I went to a conference last year. It was called Real Screen. It's a television conference for like reality TV and fiction and documentaries. And I learned a ton at that conference. And the conferences, conferences are expensive. And I kind of went and dropped a nice chunk of change to go to that conference. But I tell you, I got a connection with Animal Planet out of that conference. And in all those meetings and lessons, the first thing I learned is that there's not a lot of money in TV. There's only money in producing TV. You've got to actually make it. And then you can get a little bit of a profit margin. A lot of people were saying that like someone wants to bring you an idea and thinks that you're going to bring it and make it, and they're going to like walk away with $1 million. And the truth is like, I mean, he was doing the math. He's like, if you brought me an idea and I got it on television and it was for this network, it was like some reality show, blah, blah. He goes, I'd maybe cut you in for $2,000 an episode. And if we do 22 episodes, that could be anywhere from like $20,000 to $40,000. He goes, I think that's a good paycheck for doing nothing.
Yep.
It was really enlightening, that like you're not going to give somebody an idea and walk away with like $100,000, but you might walk away with $20,000. And if you didn't do anything for it, $20,000 is a nice chunk of change to get. But once I saw that medium of like, no, it's television. You have to be able to produce it, and produce it means knowing who you're going to sell it to and spinning it in the right way and trying to keep the essence of it. And that costs time and money. I mean, you can't, if you're going to pick up a camera and you're going to edit, it's going to cost you time and money. You can't just do it with favors. You can't just go out and have all your friends help you with a production and then expect to like come around and be like, well, it only cost me $3,000 to do that, so I should be able to do a whole episode for 15. It's like, well, those people are going to hate you because you probably, beg, borrowed, and steal their time to do it the first time. When you actually get up to production and you have to pay people, it's going to cost a lot more than you think. And, where's that money come from? So it's definitely a different game to be in this side of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. I haven't actually mentioned this to too many people, but like one of my friends is a big casting director. He's responsible for stuff like Jersey Shore is one of the casting directors on that, for instance, which I always give him shit about. It's great at a party, actually, when he's done such great stuff with his career, but I'll be like, oh yeah, this is my buddy Scott. He casted for Jersey Shore, and everyone's like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "No, actually, I'm a real person." But
he did a good job though, because that show went kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he does a lot of stuff. He works for one of the biggest casting places in LA, and he's done phenomenally well. And but I just love give him shit. But I had an opportunity not too long ago just to pitch an idea, and I was just like, all right, well, for me, like I've never, like it's more reality TV, but like I've never been interested in that aspect. Like what you're doing is fucking awesome, but like reality TV, that sort of thing, to me, it's my not really my thing. In terms of at least when I think of Jersey Shore, but so I had an opportunity to pitch a show, and I pitched it, and initially, and I've seen him kind of tear through people, who throw him bad ideas, and like he was like, yeah, well, write up something and let's see what happens. And for me, I kind of figure, yeah, you're right. Like doing a lot of, especially reality TV, there is not much money in it. So what I ended up having to do is I sent out a pitch, and I decided to spend no more than one night on it, because my time is a lot more valuable than spending it on something that I don't think is going to ever get any return. But from there, what ended up happening is they're all like, yeah, we love it. We want you to come in and chat. And went in and chatted for a while, and they're like, okay, write up like a 10 episode, we'll go from there. And for me, again, like even at that point where I'm like, wow, this actually could happen, I knew what the money involved is, and it's every episode you get, you're not really getting that much cash. So it's kind of like, all right, I've got my day job and I'm being paid a lot more, so it's more in my spare time I would do it. And it's one of those things, that's in the works at the moment, but like it's definitely one of those things that like I'm never going to bank on or think of as being something that's really going to change my career in terms of like I'm going to make it rich from this. But what I love about what you're doing is like you're actually taking something that's a whole new concept. Is not like, when I say reality TV, I'm talking more about, the Santa Monica Housewives or the OC or whatever. But yeah, you take something that's like completely original and creative, and you've got an opportunity where it could spin off into 100 different things. And like what you've done is you're passionate about something, and you've actually created, it sounds like you've created a whole world around this, and that is something huge, and that's something that could grow, and that's what people actually look for, and that's what is missing. That's why everyone kind of digs into books and everything else for ideas these days, is that it's so hard to come up with something that's original. It's fantasy, but it's also based around characters and everything else. And I love that. I think that's such a brilliant thing what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that makes sense for me is like by doing this, it really does feed my visual effects team. I mean, as you're in the visual effects world, you're always looking for the next job or the next opportunity, and to be actually doing our own production, it actually gives me a reason to keep that company fed. So I'm excited about that, and we've developed these creatures for Grimm for so long. We're so good at making creatures. I have a great creature designer on my team. He's fantastic. He worked at the orphanage. He was like the lead shader guy for Iron Man's version of at the orphanage. So he's just so fucking talented, and I just love working with him. He's a dream.
What's his name?
Nathan Reed.
Oh, Oh yeah. Tell him I said what's up. It's kind of funny. I talk with Neil Blevins a lot, and Neil used to work with Nathan briefly at Blur 100 years ago, and so we always kind of tease Nathan because he's the nicest guy, so talented, but he's also so quiet. So
called him at the orphanage. They called him No Speaky.
No Speaky. Shit. Yeah.
Because he just never would talk. And I met him, and I was like, and I didn't know that nickname, and I was like, "Why you guys call him that? That's not nice." And they were like, "No, it's really his nickname." And I asked him one day, he's like, "Yeah, that was my nickname," because I have no problem talking with him. I mean, he's definitely a quieter person, but we get along great. We talk all the time. He's my art director for Refuge. So
that's awesome. Yeah, Mike Janoff, he used to call him No Speaky all the time, and I'm like,
yeah.
I felt the same way. I think he just kind of brings it out, and people I'm like, that's not very nice. You gotta treat him better. Last time I saw him, he showed me this model he's doing, and maybe I shouldn't mention this, but I was like, "What's that?" And he's like, "Oh, I can't talk about it." And I'm like, "Okay," but it's a cute little teddy bear, and then years later, it's like, "Oh, you're modeling Ted, you asshole." So,
that's right. He told me about that he did Ted for the movie, which is
that was really cool. So, I had no idea what it was. I'm like, oh, okay, that's neat. No, Nathan's amazing. He's such a talented guy, so that's great.
He is, and when I realized how he really wanted to do more concept stuff, and he's really good at natural kind of stuff. He really breaks down the body and really puts together things with bones and muscle. So he's perfect for Medieval Monsters because he's done 3 designs now. One of them is the one that you're going to see in the pilot. He designed that monster. We designed it together because it has a very specific thing that's going on in there. But, he's already designed 2 more creatures for the show, and I just love working with them. So it's really cool taking an artist that's doing ZBrush and 3D studio lighting for almost his entire career. And then one day I was like, "Hey, you want to just draw today?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's cool." So I just basically pulled him off his computer, and I was like, "Go find a spot in the office with some sunlight, sit down and do me sketches." I was like, "I need a beast. It has to have tusks. It has to have a trunk, but it's built like a pig, and it has porcupine spikes on it." And he was like, he just sat down and started kind of sketching, a monster for me. And it's really been great to kind of, give an artist the ability to kind of change mediums like that. I think it really helps keep them fresh. So I'm really excited for Medieval Monsters so that when it picks up, I can sit down with them and be like, "All right, design our creatures, and let's do that before the writing team does the episode so that they can actually look at these monsters and start to write about them. And, we can come up with all these different theories, about these monsters." And the thing with this show is everybody's been asking me, they're like, "Oh, are you going to do a griffin? And are you going to do, I don't know, give me a typical, a unicorn and a typical, things from mythology." And I was like, "No, man, mythology is so uncreative. The Greeks, back when they were coming up with these things, it's like a children's book.
They literally just I'll get the head from this and I'll plunk it on this one.
The head from a lion and the scorpion tail." And I'm just like, that shit is so weak. I go, "No, I want to actually look at real science, what we really see here on Earth. What are the creatures that really intrigue us?" And man, you could look on the internet and see some really messed up stuff. And I want to take those ideas and bring them into these other mythical beasts, but make it about science. So, we can still do fire-breathing animals. It's still possible because there is some science behind that. But, the idea that a beast can be invisible, that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Nothing can turn invisible.
Hey, you can bend light, okay? I've seen TV shows where they talk about it, right? Gary Busey was able to take on the Predator in Predator 2, right? Got chopped in half.
But I'm really, that's going to be really fun because, again, in the first pilot demo that I did that didn't air, we had this creature that had 6 and 8 legs, and everybody thought it could be invisible, and it turned out it just had really good camouflage. So, we kind of play with the idea that, and also everybody believed that it could turn you to stone, kind of like Medusa, and we kind of put myth in there.
Paralyzes you instead.
Right. What we actually did is that it actually has a stomach bile that it sprays on you to calcify your skin and flesh. And that's actually, the myth was a little bit kind of off because of that.
That's awesome. I love that.
So we kind of take these crazy ideas, we put them into these monsters. And my goal is to bring a new monster every week and just have people tuning in for the comedy of the actors, but then also to see some amazing creature and see something new about it.
Yeah, it's kind of like doing a modern Harryhausen / kind of hunting TV show or something. I kind of really dig the whole idea behind it. That's cool.
Yeah, it should be a blast. Hopefully it gets picked up by Animal Planet after everybody tunes in and watches it and tweets the hell out of it and talks about it, because I'm just trying to get a lot of buzz around it. And that's the way to do things nowadays. It's like you want to go to, I guess I could have gone to Indiegogo or Kickstarter and done it that way, and we could still be in the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
But I went the more traditional route, talked to a network that I thought the property would fit right on. And that was definitely part of it. When I first had the idea, I was trying to think of what network would carry it, And of course, everybody's like, oh, the Sci-Fi Channel. And I was like, I don't know if the Sci-Fi Channel would actually do a show like this. Now, I'd like to believe that they would. And I'm sure when they see it, they're going to be like, of course we would. But when I met the guys at Animal Planet and I realized that they would be open to doing something different. And then I also started looking at Animal Planet, and look what they did. Actually, they did this mermaid show, which is actually going to be on before the pilot. They did this mermaid documentary that was totally scripted. And it tricked people. People were thinking there were mermaids alive. I mean, it's kind of funny. And then they did a series called Lost Tapes back about 10 years ago, which were all these, stories about monsters. So Animal Planet has definitely done they've done scripted stuff before. Mm-hmm. But I think if they pick it up, this will be definitely a big highlight for them to have an original series that is totally scripted and really fits their kind of demographic and network. Because, they're animals. They just happen to be fictitious animals that don't actually exist, created all in CG. But if you tell somebody that, it's like, well, that sounds amazing. Let's see what that's all about.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the actors. Like, they're actually local actors, and they were in the first demo, and I showed them to the network, and they were like, they asked you that key question. They said, well, are these actors attached to the script? And I sat there and I go, oh, crap. This is either moment where I sell out the actors, really, stay true. And I said, well, guys, they did a really great job. They're not attached, but I think they did a fantastic job. And the network guys were like, yeah, no, we did too. They're fucking great. These guys were great. I love the way they acted. So, when we went to the next stage of development, they really didn't want to muck with that. They saw that what I had put together was really good. And, a lot of times they'll come in and be like, okay, well, we have some talent. We have an actor. We want to change your guy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They didn't do that. And it was really cool and really refreshing when they were like, all right, Fred, just go do it. Just go do it, what you're going to do. Take some money, go do it, and show us the result.
That's great.
One thing they said, we want you to punch it up. We want you to make it a little more dangerous, Make it real. Don't make it a kid show. And make it funny, too, And then one guy's like, you ever seen Shaun of the Dead? I really like Shaun of the Dead. And I was like, okay, I like Shaun of the Dead. So, as I was writing the script for this little pilot, I was like, all right, well, let's add a dead body. Let's show a dead body in the show. That'll make it a little more serious, Mm-hmm. So we did. We've been the first scene of the show. You see this half-eaten body, and you get a glimpse of it. And of course, that's the crime scene. And then as I watched Shaun of the Dead, of course, that weekend, because the executives were asking about it, I noticed the way they kind of played with the cuts and the action. So we kind of came back to the table, and when we did it, it really kind of worked out, because we kind of play with those moments of quick pans and kind of getting from one scene to another. And the comedy sensibility really kind of fit in with that kind of awkward comedy that Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg did in Shaun of the Dead. So I kind of came back and I gave it to him, and we really polished it up. We did full finishing, we did a full color correction, and a lot of times they just want a sizzle reel. They just want this boring sizzle reel. Yeah. So I came back and I did full color correction in DaVinci. I did a full sound mix with a sound company. We did all these visual effects. We polished the shit out of them. We did it at 2K. We didn't even do it at 1920.
Jeez.
And they saw it and they were like, wow. Wow, you literally did an Edgar Wright film on a Discovery Channel, development budget, and we're kind of blown away. We really are blown away. So they were really excited about it, and I think that's also what helped. Is you have an idea, you say you can produce it, but man, there's so many people out there that say they have a great idea and say they can pull it off. I think the truth is when you do deliver it and you're really proud of it, then you do know that I can pull that off. And everybody that's watched it now is like, holy shit, that's really cool looking. I'd really want to see that on TV. So I'm hoping that, we can get those masses and get them to watch it and then convince the network that they need to take a chance and do something different,
Yeah. No, I love that. And like, I love the fact that you've kind of gone and shown like, production value in here in terms of like, okay, this is the end product. So that way it's not like, okay, if we had more money and everything else, can you see how it could look? It's like, this is the end product. So
that's a lot to ask people to stretch their imagination. And this is, if I had, if you're saying, if I had more money, I think you've already failed. You know what I mean? Because it's like, well, then maybe you should have done less and spent the money more appropriately,
Yep, exactly. And no, I love that. I love the fact that you've taken the initiative here and you've over-delivered the whole way. Like, I'm actually really keen to check this out. And you're going to have a link you can send me beforehand, so that way we can put it up with the show notes and get everyone to come over, because I'm putting this up on the 18th, which is Monday. And so obviously we've got about 5 days till the 23rd, so it'll be good to kind of push as much traffic as we can to get everyone to check this out, because I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'll give you a link to it, and this way people can kind of take a look at the show, read a little bit about what it's about, and, watch it. And hopefully, again, tweet about it. Everybody, I'm going to remind everybody, like, hit our Facebook page, tweet about it, say whether you like it, say whether you hated it. I mean, try not to, but, you have to. Any press is good press. But,
anyone who retweets, Fred will buy you a beer, okay?
Yeah, there you go. When you see me at SIGGRAPH next year, I'll buy you a beer. Just come up and tell me you tweeted about the show, and I'll buy you a beer. I'll actually put a budget for that. But yeah, if we can get our group of guys, the VFX guys, the guys on the ground that really want to see this business keep going, I need that support. I'd like people to be calling me up and putting in more jobs here up in Portland. We have a lot of ex-Californians and a lot of ex-Canadians that are kind of tired of relocating for tentpole jobs, and I'd like to build something here. So hopefully I can double the size of the VFX team by bringing up shows like this.
I'll tell you something funny. I've never been to Portland yet. I'm actually looking, like, I'm seriously considering either moving there or San Diego, because I love LA, but like I want to buy a property, and for me, Portland just looks beautiful, and for the pricing and everything, it's amazing. So I keep looking all the time. I'm like, wow, for a third of what I would pay over here, I can get this like lush place with a balcony looking over a forest. And
exactly.
Yeah.
No, Portland's it's like a hidden secret. Like, we have a bunch of tech companies here. We have a bunch of sportswear companies here. It's got a great downtown. It's still small enough that, you can get across town in 30, 40 minutes at rush hour, like from one end of town to the other. Like it's just still small, and it's growing. We have like some of the best food. I got to say, like, we don't get a lot of chain restaurants. Everything's just unique mom and pop shops and different restaurants popping up.
You mean you don't have an Outback Steakhouse?
We do in the suburbs. We have.
I'm just messing around.
But it's really a great city, and that's why I like it here. We Grimm is shooting here. The Librarian shoots here. Portlandia is shooting here. Like, we're actually getting more and more momentum around television shows. And we're still on the West Coast, so if you're talking to somebody in LA, you can still be on their timeline, or if you're talking to somebody up in Vancouver, you can still be on their timeline. And that's all of our guys. Not a lot of them are actually from Portland. A lot of them are, they're ex-industry guys that kind of moved north of San Francisco and ended up in Portland, just like I did. And it's kind of fantastic because you can still buy a house here for a reasonable price. There are still, good school districts, and you can raise a family, which a lot of us have started a long time ago. That's what we're looking to do, is like have a family life and not work ridiculous hours and get underpaid. And that's kind of what I want to do too, is I want to be able to, create a company where, I kind of brag to people. They're like, oh my God, Grimm, it must be so exciting. You must work a lot of hours. And I was like, yeah, we work usually from about 9 to 6,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We usually work weekends at the end of the season, maybe once or twice, but and people are like, well, how do you do that? And I'm like, you just got to be smart. There's no reason why you can't hire more people in less time. Like, if you're going into that much overtime, first of all, you're losing your margin. You're paying people overtime. You're burning them out. They hate you. I mean, what else? Why would you not want to do that? If you really have that much work, then hire more people and let them all have a normal 9-to-5 job where they can go out for lunch, and come back and have a normal day. There should not be this kind of crazy requests at 6 o'clock that all the shots get delivered. You should have a good schedule. And that's why I love NBC and I love Grimm, because such a great client to work for. We have such a great relationship, and we have great expectations when we go back and forth.
I love that, man. That's really awesome. That's great, in fact. And okay, I'll leave it there, man. But like, I think this is awesome, and I think that all of us, like, if any of us have that kind of dream of, I want to go and I want to do my own thing, I want to do something big and get out of my comfort zone. I mean, this is a perfect example, and I think that we all should support each other in doing exactly that. So, all of you listening, I think it'd be really great to kind of band together, and especially visual effects people, and make that happen. So
spread the word.
Absolutely, man. And I'd love to get you back. I mentioned this earlier, but I'd love to get you back and maybe talk a bit more about this, specifically about your studio, as well as branching out and like kind of taking the initiative to do your own thing. I think that's such an inspirational and awesome thing that we all want to do.
Yeah, no, it's been a blast, and I'm really excited about the future. It's funny when I wake up out of bed and I'm like, yeah, this is really going pretty good so far. And I don't want to jinx it, but I've really been able to do everything I want to do these last couple of years, and it makes something like quitting your job and starting your own company, which is like nerve wracking, and you're scared at the beginning. You're like, I don't know if this is going to work out. Now I look back and it's probably the best thing I've ever done. And I've learned so much, and I feel like I can bring that, like, the guys that were in the trenches, when I'm asking them to do stuff, they look at me and they know I'm not unreasonable. They know that they can't bullshit me. You know what I mean? Because I've been there with them. I know what they're talking about, and I still have guys coming to me for tips. So as much as I'm the executive producer, somebody will come and be like, "Hey, why isn't the skin tool doing this thing?" And I'll be like, "All right, let me help you out."
That's because of that Jake guy that was hired and fired that one week, and he fucked up the modifier. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, that's because I went on vacation and someone destroyed the tool. Okay.
Yeah, people always ask me, "Why is this way?" And I'm like, "Well, back in 1997, back in 1992, when this engineer was hired at Autodesk, no, it's really fun stuff." Well, thanks, Allan. I really appreciate you having me on, and I do look forward to spreading the word about the show and getting some popularity for a VFX company, doing their own production. So it should be cool.
This is awesome. Stick around for a sec, but thanks, man. This has been really great. Like, I've really enjoyed talking to you and getting to shoot the shit and go down memory lane a little. And I think it's really inspirational what you're doing. So, best of luck, man. I'll definitely be tuning in, and I'll definitely be pushing this as much as I can.
Thanks, Allan.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. For me, this is such a fun talk, and there was so much other stuff I wanted to get into, but I didn't want to veer off into too many different subjects. I'd love to get Fred back to do a whole talk about setting up a company, about more taking an idea from being that unrealistic, unattainable pipe dream to being able to go out there and make it happen. There's so much cool stuff that I'd love to get into, especially the business side of 3D and visual effects as well. He's such a great resource of knowledge and history to kind of tap into. Now, as I mentioned, I'll mention the Real Review first. If you go to allanmckay.com/real review, so one word, REEL review. And if you go there, you'll be able to sign up and get more information ahead of time as to our real review next month. And this will be a fully interactive live webinar that I'll be doing with Todd Sheridan Perry. And this is going to be a monthly thing. It's going to be really cool. I'd love your support. So please do it. Check it out and see if it's right for you. I think even for us who are more experienced, it's still very insightful to be able to chime in and get to interact with larger groups of people and see what's going on. So even if you're not entering the industry, or you come from design or other aspects of the industry, there'll be a lot to take from that. Now, the big thing is that I would love to call on the support of us as a community and all help Fred with his goal, his dream, his show that he's been working nonstop on, and it comes to this point where making this a reality, getting this to work, getting it to happen. If you go to medievalmonsters.com, and that's in the show notes if you want to check it out, and just click the show notes link and you'll be able to go there and check it out. And on Saturday, the 23rd of May at 11 p.m., he'll be showing the show, and I would love to get your support. I think that this is something that is and will affect all of us, and it'd be great for us all to band together and make these sorts of things a reality. So thank you again for all your support, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. I've got some really, really cool episodes coming up soon. I'm also going to be interviewing a few directors, as well as a couple of really big designers pretty soon, because I'd love, as much as I do dive into all the 3D stuff, to get a few other people in who come from more the design background or more motion graphics. I'd love to kind of delve into a few other areas. That way, it's something that, as a whole, we've got such a mixed group of people in like the VIP inside circle, and I love that. And I'd love for all of us who listen to this podcast, no matter what field you're in, to be able to take a lot of really great solid information from it. Now, again, if you want to check out medievalmonsters.com, I'll leave a link in the show notes, and you can go there and support it, follow it, and please spread the word. That's all I ask, and that's it for now, guys. I'll be back next week.